Chapter 1558. Qi Huangji, a prodigy of the netherworld, was indeed an incredibly powerful king tier. In a battle of the same cultivation level, he could even suppress the North Emperor and Stone Emperor. However, back then in the Mountain River Forest, Qi Huangji ultimately still lost to Ling Han. Though he did not lose out in benefits, it was still a dishonorable mark on his history. He had always been brooding over this, but the netherworld and immortal realms were separated, so he naturally could not find Ling Han to battle and wash away this humiliation. When Wu Ju escaped, the chaotic demon palace sent out many people to search for him. Later, Wu Ju was found, and they also brought back some good seedlings like Qi Huangji. He was indeed a genius. In a mere 100 years, he advanced into the Eternal River tier, and even reached the medium extreme. This kind of talent was among the best in the Star Sand Martial Arts Academy. Qi Huangji never thought that he would actually encounter Ling Han here. Yo, long time no see. Ling Han waved at Qi Huangji, not worried that his secret from the immortal realm would be exposed. The Hysteria Demon Master clearly knew his identity, but did not say anything. Then, as long as this Demon Master did not make a move, why would he need to care about others? Qi Huangji gritted his teeth. He did not think that Ling Han would be so audacious as to actually run into the netherworld. Furthermore, he actually perfectly merged into the netherworld. If he had not seen it with his own eyes, even if others pointed at Ling Han and said that he was a spy from the immortal realm, he probably would not believe it. He wanted to pounce and fight to his heart's content with Ling Han, but the Hysteria Demon Master was beside him, and he hurriedly said, "Lord Master, this boy is from the immortal realm. I don't know what method he used to conceal his identity." What? Hearing these words, the people who had come to greet him all paled in shock. This was actually a spy from the immortal realm? Ling Han coughed and said, "Qi Huangji, you can eat nonsense, but you can't speak nonsense. How do you and I look like people from the immortal realm? Humph, don't forget that over 100 years ago, we once met in the two-realm battlefield, and also fought. Do you think I can't tell whether you are from the immortal realm or the immortal realm?" Qi Huangji sneered. Ling Han nodded. "Are you talking about the time you lost to me?" The crowd burst into an uproar again when they heard that. Qi Huangji had actually lost. That was impossible, right? Though this junior brother of his was an up-and-coming talent, his talent was indeed astonishing, and he was hailed as the second Mo. In the future, even if he could not become a demon master, it was very possible that he would cultivate to the pinnacle level of the Eternal River tier, and become a demon in an alternative way. At that time, Ling Han's cultivation must have been higher, and he relied on the advantage of his realm to win. That must be it. A sliver of anger and embarrassment appeared on Qi Huangji's face, and he said, "That's because my cultivation level was forcefully suppressed to the Mountain River tier. If we were to battle at full strength, I would be able to suppress you with a single finger." Everyone couldn't help but wear strange expressions. Judging from Qi Huangji's tone, it was clear that he was the one with the advantage in cultivation level at that time. Fuck, just who is this young man? He's too ferocious. Ling Han laughed heartily and said, "Then let's spar again." Yet Qi Huangji humphed coldly. "Don't even think of changing the topic. You are clearly a member of the immortal realm, yet have entered our netherworld. What exactly are your intentions?" The Hysteria Demon Master finally spoke. "Since he has entered our netherworld, and obtained the acknowledgement of the regulations of our netherworld, then the topic of Ling Han being a member of our netherworld shall never be mentioned again." This was the will of the Demon Master. Once he spoke, the whole world would obey. "Yes, Master. Yes, Lord Demon Master." Everyone obeyed. Though Qi Huangji was unwilling, he could only nod in agreement. However, the Demon Master only said that he did not care about Ling Han's previous identity, but did not say that he could not spar with him. "Ling Han, then let's spar again." Qi Huangji jumped out. He was extremely favored and valued by the Hysteria Demon Master, so he could do some things that other disciples did not dare to do, such as issuing a challenge in front of the Demon Master. This time, the Demon Master did not stop him. He merely smiled at Ling Han and said, "Let's have a fair battle." Ling Han knew what he meant. If he went all out, 11 killing formations would be activated at once, and even Emoli would have a headache. So what could Qi Huangji do? Thus, if it was a fair battle, the killing formations naturally could not be used. This was actually very unfair. He could brand the killing formations because Ling Han had cultivated the indestructible Heaven's Scroll, and his physique was strong enough. It was not like he had obtained them by chance. However, Ling Han did not mind. If he could not win in a battle at the same cultivation level, what a joke. All right, let's have a fair battle, Ling Han said with a smile. Then let's have a battle in the sky. Qi Huangji was the first to soar into the sky. Ling Han lazily rose into the sky as well. If it was a battle at the same cultivation level, he would not take rank 3 king tiers seriously, unless it was someone who had come from a forbidden land and cultivated celestial techniques. They would not be able to oppose him at all. However, if it really came to that, he could activate the 11 killing formations, and he would still be able to settle everything. Even after cultivating the indestructible Heaven's Scroll, the highest cultivation technique of the celestial realm, he still could not defeat all his peers? What a joke! Sister, have some melon seeds. When Wu Ju saw that the eyesore had left, he hurriedly ran over to fawn over her, causing everyone to stare in shock. They had never seen young master so eager to please others. Even the demon master grimaced slightly. This guy was not even this filial towards him. Everyone looked towards the heavenly phoenix divine maiden. They felt that though this woman was very beautiful, she was not beautiful to the extent that she could make one fall head over heels for her, right? At least in this galaxy, there would definitely be 1 or 2 people who could rival her. So why did it seem like young master had become a completely different person? Yet they did not know that Wu Ju had still been a child, and had been carefully taken care of by the heavenly phoenix divine maiden. That naturally left an incredibly deep impression on him. And how could it be replaced by any woman? In the sky, Qi Huangji stared coldly at Ling Han, his expression solemn. This opponent that he could crush to death with a single hand in the past, had actually caught up to him, in terms of cultivation level. This was really inconceivable. He had received the careful guidance of a demon master, and added with his own nature-defying good fortune. He practically had all kinds of natural treasures at his disposal. But Ling Han was actually able to catch up to him in terms of cultivation level. This was unimaginable. Multiple demonic patterns appeared on Qi Huangji's hands. He had absolute confidence. In a battle of equals, he did not fear anyone, and he could crush anyone. He suddenly roared, and charged towards Ling Han to attack. Ling Han was very casual. Even if he did not use killing formations, merely the strength of his defenses was not something that Qi Huangji could break through. Even if he did not resist, and allowed Qi Huangji to meld with regulations, it would at least take a few days before he could wound him. He raised his hand, and runes began to glow one after another. However, the strange thing was that these runes were not divine runes, nor were they demonic runes. Instead, they seemed to be a combination of the two, but they were on a higher level. The Hysteria Demon Master couldn't help but be slightly surprised. The might of these seals was naturally too weak to withstand a single blow in his eyes, but if he was also dragged down to the Eternal River tier, then the demonic patterns that he had displayed would be no match for them. This brat was really strange. Cell phone reading is even more refreshing. Chapter 1560. Ling Han sat in the courtyard, thinking about something. He had no choice but to escape into the netherworld. He didn't want to be hunted by one, or even a group of saints all day long. Now that he had entered the netherworld, he should also plan what he should do next. What would never change was naturally to increase his own strength. At this height, even if he was the alchemy emperor, and could eat high-level alchemical pills like candy, his advancement would still be very slow. According to the normal path, it would take at least 100 years for him to advance a subminor level. This was obviously too slow. Just advancing into the Genesis tier would take 1,000 years, not to mention blasting open the celestial realm. At least he had to reach the Great Saint tier, and merge the regulations of the two realms. If he wanted to speed up, he needed the support of saintly medicine. But how rare and precious was such a great medicine? If I could sweep through the forbidden lands, I'm sure there would be one or two such great medicines in every forbidden land. But the problem is the forbidden lands have saint kings on guard. And if I have the ability to sweep through the Holy Land, would I still need saintly medicine? Ling Han was troubled. Can you create a situation where even the saints leave the forbidden land? Then, I would be able to fish in troubled waters. Would such a situation occur? Let's put this aside for now. Aside from the improvement of my own strength, there is the divine demon sword. Work hard to rush to level 18, 19, 20, and if there is enough top-grade saintly material, it can even become a celestial tool. Ling Han's eyes flashed. If the divine demon sword could take this step, then he would really be invincible in the netherworld and immortal realms. So what if it was a saint king? He could kill them with a single strike. This is also a method, but to obtain so much saintly material seems to be even harder than saintly medicine. Ling Han sighed. The path of martial art had always been narrower and steeper the further one walked. Not only did one have to work hard to conquer dangerous peaks, but they also had to compete with others in the same field, because this path could not accommodate too many people. If there is a chance, I'll ask the Hysteria Demon Master if there is any way to accelerate the accumulation of origin power. I have the reincarnation tree, and comprehension of cultivation level is no problem, solving the biggest problem of others. Bang bang bang. Just as Ling Han was lost in thought, there was a knock on the door. Ling Han's heart was no longer listless. He used his origin energy to open the door, and he saw an extremely beautiful girl standing at the door. Her eyes were filled with lust, and the corners of her mouth carried a coquettish smile. She was filled with an alluring charm. Big Brother Han. The woman immediately rushed in, and acted as if she was about to throw herself into Ling Han's arms. However, when she swept her gaze around, she discovered that only Ling Han was there, and she immediately stopped. She hurriedly called out, "Big Brother Han! Big Brother Han!" She called out twice, as if she was deliberately calling out for others to hear. Ling Han was stunned at first, then he laughed. "Wu Ju sent you?" The girl was startled, and hurriedly shook her head. Smiling sweetly, she said, "Big Brother Han, what are you saying? I like you, that's why I want to be with you." She dealt with Ling Han, and then loudly called out, "Big Brother Han, Big Brother Han." Ling Han shook his head. This Wu Ju was really a little brat. He thought that by using his beauty to put on a show, he would be able to drive a wedge between him and the heavenly phoenix divine maiden. It was really the naive thoughts of a child. He didn't stop him either. He wanted to see what tricks Wu Ju could play. In a short while there was another knock on the door. Ling Han once again used his origin energy to open the door, and another extremely beautiful girl entered. "Big Brother Han." She also called out delicately. Her eyes swept over the first girl, and when she saw her expression was strange, she couldn't help but look around. When she didn't find another target, she couldn't help but be stunned. There was only the male lead here, so how was she going to act? Ling Han smiled and said, "You also admire me, and have come to offer yourself to sleep with me?" The second girl blushed, and there was a sliver of embarrassment and annoyance in her eyes. But she didn't show it. She only nodded slightly. Ling Han smiled and said, "Then what are you still standing around for? Quickly take off your clothes. Every minute of the night is worth 1,000 gold, don't waste time." The two girls were both greatly shocked. "Are you a lecher? You actually want to be lewd in the courtyard? Furthermore, you want to have a threesome? Shameless hooligan. So shy. It's time for me to take the initiative." Ling Han moved, and the two girls instantly screamed. They wanted to escape, but how could they possibly escape from Ling Han's palm? He only had to press down, and the two girls' ability to move was already sealed. Seeing Ling Han approach step by step, his eyes even more lecherous, the two girls were so frightened that their faces turned pale. One of the girls was the first to give in, and said, "We don't know you at all. It was young mistress who told us to come." Ling Han chuckled, walked towards a corner and said, "Aren't you going to come out and take them back?" Wu Ju was currently hiding on top of a tall tower in the distance. When he saw Ling Han's gaze land on him, he hurriedly lowered his head. He looked as if he didn't meet his gaze, and he wouldn't be discovered. Emily shook her head. When would this young mistress truly grow up? Not physically but spiritually. She leaped out and landed in Ling Han's courtyard. I've made a fool of myself, she said calmly. Ling Han smiled and said, he's just a little brat. Though Wu Ju was hiding in the distance, his face was raised high, and he was listening. When he heard this, he couldn't help but fume from his nostrils. He wasn't a little brat. Emily waved a hand at the two girls and said, why haven't you left yet? Thank you, Momo. Momo. They didn't know whether Emily was male or female either. Normally, they wouldn't even have the chance to greet her. Emily didn't give them another look. Instead, she looked at Ling Han and said, young mistress is still young, and it's hard not to be impulsive when doing things. In order to compensate you, I have a suggestion. In another month, the Ocean Dragon Mountains will open, and I can leave a spot for you. Ling Han smiled and asked, and what is the Ocean Dragon Mountains? An ancient ruin, and it has great benefits for those below the Genesis tier, Emily said calmly. This ancient ruin is not in the Aurora Galaxy, and is jointly controlled by over a dozen demon masters, and the number of spots to enter is very limited. Even our chaotic demon palace can only have 10 people enter. From these few words, it could be seen how much authority this Emily had in the chaotic demon palace. There were only 10 spots, yet she could take the initiative to leave one for Ling Han. All right, we're idle anyway, so let's go. All right. Ling Han paused. Isn't Lord Hysteria able to create a spatial god tool? Can't he put people into a spatial god tool before entering the ancient ruin? Emily glanced at him, as if she was looking at an idiot. If a spatial god tool forcibly passes through some small worlds, it will cause the god tool to shatter. So that was how it was. Ling Han nodded internally. The Black Tower was definitely a celestial tool, and possibly a supreme-grade celestial tool at that. Thus, this kind of restriction wouldn't work on it. Otherwise, he had entered who knew how many mystery realms previously, and the Black Tower would have long since shattered dozens, or even hundreds of times. 3 days later, we'll depart. Emily tossed out a sentence and swaggered off. Chapter 1561. Emily, you're really too awesome. Wu Ju very quickly caught up to Emily. That guy went to the Ocean Dragon Mountains, and I can be alone with sister. I can definitely convince her to leave that detestable guy. Emily glanced at him indifferently. You have to go on this trip to the Ocean Dragon Mountains as well. What? Wu Ju shook his head repeatedly after being startled. I'm not going. I'm still young, and it's better to cultivate here. The Ocean Dragon Mountains only open once every few million years. By the next time, you'll already be in the Eternal River tier, Emily said. The earlier you obtain the fortune of the Ocean Dragon Mountains, the better it will be for you. I don't want it. I don't want it. Wu Ju became shameless. I finally managed to lure that guy away, and I want to be alone with sister. I'm not asking for your opinion, I'm merely informing you, Emily said coldly, not giving any face to this young master at all. I'll go talk to father, Wu Ju said angrily. Hee. Emily smiled insincerely. Wu Ju clearly failed. 3 days later, he appeared in the list of 10 people. The 10 people were Ling Han, Emily, Wu Ju, Qi Huangji, and 6 other disciples with astonishing talent. Actually, Emily could not obtain any benefits by entering the Ocean Dragon Mountains. She entered as a protector to protect a few junior brothers and sisters. Ling Han was not well received, because he, an outsider, actually snatched a spot to enter the Ocean Dragon Mountains. This was something that these disciples had fought for countless years to obtain. But he obtained it the moment he arrived, and he was an outsider at that. But this was personally decided by Emily, and the Demon Master had no objections, so how could they dare to say anything more? The Hysteria Demon Master personally saw them off. If they took a starship, it would take too long. A golden path spread out, and with a flick of the Hysteria Demon Master's sleeve, he brought all 10 of them, and headed towards the galaxy. This time, the distance was even further. After a whole 17 days, they finally arrived on a desolate planet. This was a dead planet. There was no spiritual chi, nor any life, but it was the location of the Ocean Dragon Mountains. At this time, there was already more than one demon master here. Each of these powerful beings was the center of the universe, incredibly dazzling. The Hysteria Demon Master went to greet these experts of the same level. The juniors would also get to know each other. Some of them were even competitors. "Emily, how many years has it been since we last met?" A man walked over. He looked very young, but should already have a long lifespan of tens of millions of years. However, his cultivation level was too high, and he was already in the consummate level of the Eternal River tier. Thus his relative age was still very, very young. Emily glanced at him indifferently and nodded as a greeting. "We've fought 7 battles. You've won 4, while I've won 3. Why don't we fight the 8th battle now? I should be able to make the score 4-4, said the man with absolute confidence. To be able to fight Emily Chi to a standstill, he was indeed very strong. That guy is called Zhu Ba, but we all call him Zhu Ba. It's said that after Zhu Ba was defeated by Emily for the first time, he started to pursue Emily. Other than him, no one has fought with Emily 7 times. Emily was cold and indifferent. She did not accept the challenge, but did not refuse it either. In truth, Zhu Ba did not really want to start a battle with Emily. He merely wanted to use this opportunity to strike up a conversation with her. This objective had already been achieved, so he naturally would not be overbearing. Instead, he became very humble. A few days later, more demon masters arrived. Multiple golden paths spread out, and they were all escorting their descendants and disciples over. The Overlord Sword Demon Master had also arrived. Aside from Zhu Xian, there were 9 other disciples. Not a single spot had been wasted. When Zhu Xian arrived at Ling Han, she couldn't help but look pleasantly surprised. But when it came to Wu Ju, she couldn't help but humph coldly and turn her head away proudly. The day before the Ocean Dragon Mountains opened, all the demon masters had arrived. It was said that the Ocean Dragon Mountains were suspected to have power on the level of black demons. Thus, every time it opened, a demon master would personally stand guard just in case. In the Netherworld, demon masters were naturally also divided into 4 levels, namely Heaven, Earth, Black, and Yellow. Heaven demons corresponded to Saint Kings, and Yellow demons corresponded to small saints. The Hysteria Demon Master and the others were all yellow demons, and were not yet qualified to enter the Ocean Dragon Mountains to suppress everything. Furthermore, if they entered, they would trigger a strong backlash from the Ocean Dragon Mountains. In the past, even a demon master had fallen, so now, no demon masters dared to enter. Those below the level of demon master entering would not alarm this force. It seemed that they were too weak, and could not be bothered at all. There were a total of 17 demon masters, and 170 candidates who had entered. Some were strong practitioners who had been famous for a long time, and were even just a step away from becoming a demon master, such as Emoli. There were also complete newbies, such as Wu Ju. He was merely over 100 years old, and his temperament was more like that of a child. A day passed, and when the morning sun rose from the barren horizon, a loud rumbling sound could be heard, and a mountain peak broke through the ground. What was surprising was that the surroundings of the mountain peak was actually a vast body of water. It floated in the air, and not a single drop of water fell. This mountain peak was not tall, and was only a few thousand zhang tall. This vast body of water was not large either, and only appeared to be turbulent, but in reality, it was only a few thousand zhang in circumference. But in reality, if one stepped into this unique world, the mountain would become infinitely tall, and the sea would become infinitely large. It was said that merely crossing the sea would cause 90% of the people to give up in resignation, and among the remaining 10%, not a single person had ever successfully climbed to the top of the mountain. From the outside, there was a temple at the top of the mountain peak. It was completely crystal blue, and one could faintly see the stone statue of a true dragon lying on top of it. Thus, it was named the Ocean Dragon Mountains. This was the Ocean Dragon Mountains mystery realm. It seemed as if one could enter from all directions, but in reality, that was not the case. One would only bump into an invisible wall. If one wanted to enter, they could only pass through the main entrance. That was an arched door that was about 3 meters tall, and there were true dragons carved into stone coiled around the pillars of the door. Quickly enter, You all only have 3 years' time, a demon master said. Everyone was just about to move when they saw a golden path spread out over Xiao. In an instant there were 6 more people. One of them was an old man in his 60s or 70s, while the others were young people in their prime, full of vigor. The eyes of the 17 demon masters all narrowed. They were the rulers of the surrounding galaxies, and naturally knew what kind of elites there were in the vicinity. But this old man really did not look the slightest bit familiar to them. But it just so happened that this was also a demon master, and an extremely powerful one at that. He was the kind that could be counted as a big shot among the yellow demons. Our luck is not bad. We passed by on some business, and actually encountered the opening of an ancient ruin, the newly arrived old demon master said with a smile. Better than a coincidence, this is heaven's will. You all should go in and search for your own fated opportunities. Yes, 6th elder. The 5 young people all nodded respectfully. Wait, the Hysteria demon master said. Fellow Taoist, you are usurping the host's role. I strongly recommend a book from my friend, Emperor Destroys the Heavens by the author, laughing at me insanely. Everyone please go and collect it, and give me a recommendation ticket. Thank you, thank you. You must go. Reading on your phone is more refreshing. Chapter 1562. That elderly demon master first glanced at the Hysteria demon master, and then swept his gaze across the other demon masters, before saying, You guys have an opinion too? The Overlord Sword demon master took a step forward, and said, We don't welcome outsiders here. Hee. That elderly demon master laughed and said, If you guys have the ability to chase me away, then I will naturally leave. Otherwise, shut your own mouths. All the demon masters stared at this elderly, revealing a dense coldness. You're an outsider, yet you're so arrogant. Come and fight. That elderly said darkly, extremely arrogant. The 5 youngsters he brought with him also crossed their arms, that proud expression of theirs, as if they didn't even care about these demon masters. This was a sense of superiority that came from their very bones. Ling Han couldn't help but feel a jolt in his heart. This expression was very familiar. Without another word, the Overlord Sword demon master waved his hand, and a sword light sliced towards the elderly. This sword light was only a foot long, and looked very ordinary. But would a demon master's attack be simple? The elderly smiled faintly, and stretched out his hand, grabbing that sword light in his palm. With a squeeze, the sword light was forcibly annihilated, not even causing a ripple. Seeing this scene, all the demon masters revealed shocked expressions. The Overlord Sword demon master definitely hadn't used his full strength, but he belonged to the top of the yellow demon level, and any random attack from him was already shockingly powerful. Yet it was so easily neutralized. That elderly's strength was unfathomable. If they started a fierce battle of life and death with this kind of expert, even if the 17 of them attacked together, they might still be dragged down with them. At the height of a demon master, who would be willing to die? The elderly used his own strength to prove that he indeed had the qualifications to stand here. Hee, for people of our level, fighting and killing is too beneath our dignity. Why don't we let the juniors exchange blows? A female demon master spoke up. She was an old woman, and she held a crimson walking stick in her hand, looking very old and feeble. But this walking stick was a saint tool, and its power was astonishing. When the other demon masters heard this, they all nodded. Amongst these disciples and juniors, there were a few incomparably outstanding existences, such as Mo Li and Zhu Ba. By letting them fight, not only could they maintain the battle within a controllable range, they could also make these outsiders retreat in the face of difficulties. The elder had an indifferent look on his face, and only revealed a deep smile. He naturally knew what these demon masters were thinking. He turned around and said, Jiner, go and ask these people for advice. Yes, 6th Patriarch. A young man walked out. He was very handsome, and his skin was very white. However, there was a faint golden luster to it. He swept his gaze across the crowd of youths and said with a smile, I'm Tan Mo. Who wants to spar with me? The Overlord Sword demon master and the others pondered for a moment, then said, Mo Li Zhu Ba. Yin He, the 3 of you go. 3 from you guys as well. The Hysteria demon king said to the old man. The old man smiled and said, "No need. One person is enough. You want to pick 3? It should be known that Mo Li, Zhu Ba, and Yin He were all the strongest elites in the Eternal River tier, and all of them had formed over 1 million stars. If it were not for the fact that the regulations of the Genesis tier were too difficult to comprehend, they would have long since become demon masters." "I'll go first," Zhu Ba said. He had his own pride, and was naturally disdainful of joining forces with others. Tan Mo was indifferent and said, "Make your move." He was calm and composed, looking like a big brother instructing a little brother. He nodded and said, "Mo, take good care of your clansmen." "Understood." Tan Mo nodded respectfully, and nodded at his 4 clansmen. They were the first to enter through the stone-arched door. Once they passed through, their figures would become infinitely small, and then disappear from the naked eye. Even demon masters would not be able to see them. The others all wore ugly expressions. This was clearly an ancient site that they had discovered, and now, not only did it have to be shared with outsiders, it had even been snatched away by them. But if they encountered these 5 people in the ancient site, they just had to hide. Tan Mo was too powerful. "Go." Ling Han and the others also walked towards the stone-arched door, their figures disappearing one after another. When they reappeared, they had already entered the ancient site, and saw that there was a boundless ocean in front of them. This was within expectations because they had arrived outside. However, they had not been there themselves, so they could not imagine how magnificent this ocean would be. The first step crossing the ocean, Ling Han stood in midair. There were already a great many people crossing the ocean ahead, and there was no trace of Tan Mo and the other 4 who had entered first. "There is something I need here," Small Tower suddenly said. Chapter 1564. Ling Han's eyes immediately lit up. What he lacked was a saintly medicine. Emoli continued to steer the boat forward, while the others did their best to recover their vitality. In a few more hours, another huge wave would come crashing over. If they could not recover to their peak condition before then the negative effects would continue to accumulate, and they would definitely be heavily injured. The other teams were not much better off, especially without super strong practitioners like Emoli, Zhu Ba, and Yin He. All of them were riddled with injuries. A few hours later, the second huge wave came as scheduled. Bang! In the intense collision, many people coughed up blood and broke bones. And the flying boat was also undergoing a huge test. If this continued, forget about reaching the mountain peak in the middle of the sea. It would be a problem if they could even travel a third of the way. The boat will eventually be destroyed, but before that, let's get as close as we can, Emily said. If she was the only one on this trip, then she naturally would not need a flying boat, and would only need to fly with her physical body. However, she had mainly come in to take care of these junior brothers and sisters. Thus, the flying boat was a very good choice, and she could give these junior brothers and sisters as much time as possible to adjust. However, though the gigantic wave this time was astonishing, because Ling Han was also on it, if he used his full battle prowess, he would definitely not be weaker than Emoli. With the support of these 2 big shots, their team naturally had a much easier time compared to the others. It could be said that Ling Han's team of 10 was already in the lead, and the other dozen or so teams were lagging behind by quite a bit. Furthermore, they were no longer advancing side by side. Those with big shots in charge were in front, and those without big shots were at the back. The weaker they were, the further behind they were. In front? Ling Han's gaze looked towards the surface of the sea, and he stretched out his hand. Origin power condensed into a large hand, and he grabbed towards the surface of the sea. Don't, Emily hurriedly reminded him. But it was too late. Ling Han had already scooped up the sea, and retracted his large hand. When he opened it again, a duckweed appeared in his hand, and a small and exquisite silver caltrop grew out of it. Numinous treasure silver caltrop. Emily's eyes lit up, and then she revealed a hint of surprise. Your hand is actually not injured. The numinous treasure silver caltrop was a level 16 godly medicine. It could be used to concoct many high-level godly pills. Below saintly medicines, it could be said to be one of the best. Ling Han was very satisfied, and stored the silver caltrip into the black tower. Then he asked, "Why did my hand have to be injured?" "She shouldn't curse him like that." A disciple said, "Brother Ling, don't forget that there's a supreme great figure shard of laws in the seawater. If you stretch your hand into the water, it'll be equivalent to colliding with such a shard of laws, and it'll easily injure a powerhouse. Otherwise, why don't we walk from the bottom of the sea?" Walking from the bottom of the sea might be slower, but it would be safer to avoid the huge waves. However, after hearing what he said, it was true that they couldn't walk on the seabed. It meant that they were crashing into huge waves all the time. It would be strange if they didn't break their heads and bleed. "So that's how it is." Ling Han nodded. His physique was really too strong. Even the shard of laws couldn't injure him. This had to be based on cultivation level. The higher the cultivation level, the greater the impact. But his physique had far surpassed his cultivation level, so he was naturally completely fine. The flying boat continued to advance, and as they continued to travel deeper into this sea, they could also find a great many godly medicines on their way. The majority of them entered Ling Han's pocket, but because of the distance, he didn't take the time to pick some. Because Tan Mo's group still hadn't arrived, it meant that those 5 people were still ahead of them. If they wasted too much time on the road, that divine bamboo would fall into the hands of others. That was a saintly medicine, and even 10,000 high-grade godly medicines couldn't compare to it. In truth, Ling Han really didn't lack high-grade godly medicines. Previously, when he had been in the Medicine King's cave, he had picked a great many. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to concoct Eternal River tier-level godly pills as he pleased now. The huge waves here were very regular. There would be one wave every 12 hours. And in just half a day's time, they had experienced a total of 27 waves. They had already completely shaken off the 16 teams behind them, and it was finally Tan Mo's group in front of them. These 5 people were actually sitting on an open scroll. It was very large, 30 meters long and 9 meters wide. It was completely golden, and there were densely packed characters on it. Multiple demonic patterns rose up from it, and each demonic pattern seemed like it could suppress the ages. Ling Han's group of 10 arrived at Tan Mo's group of 5. The other party had obviously discovered them, and they all showed expressions of disdain. 2 of them even used their hands to make a humiliating gesture. "Emoli, quickly catch up and beat these bastards to death," Wu Ju shouted in anger. Meanwhile, Emoli's expression was solemn, and she coldly said, "Don't make trouble." Tan Mo was too powerful. He had even surpassed the level of big shots, and could be called a pseudo-demon master. She even suspected that great elites that had just advanced into the level of demon master would be far inferior to Tan Mo in terms of power. Wu Ju pouted, looking like a little submissive. Tan Mo was sitting cross-legged at the very front. He had also come over, and there was a hint of surprise in his eyes. He seemed to be wondering how Ling Han's group had managed to catch up to them. It should be known that the scroll they were sitting on was no ordinary item. Instead, it was a decree personally written by a heaven demon, and it contained the strongest regulations of heaven and earth in the entire netherworld. But even so, it was still very strenuous for them when they were being battered by the huge waves. The regulations shards in the huge waves became stronger the stronger they were, and even the heaven demon decree could not completely restrain them. However, with the heaven demon decree, they definitely had an advantage over everyone else. They should be leaving the people behind them further and further behind. How could they possibly be caught up to instead? Tan Mo smiled ambiguously, and his eyes revealed a hint of killing intent. This was a very clear warning. Do not even think about catching up to them. Otherwise he would definitely not be courteous. Mo Li and the others naturally understood this warning very clearly, and all of them were enraged. This mystery realm belonged to the 17 demon masters, and they were merely outsiders. Not only had they usurped the host's position, they actually dared to be so overbearing. This was truly preposterous. Tan Mo retracted his gaze and looked ahead. He did not care about the reactions of Ling Han and the others at all. In his eyes they were all trash. So what if they were indignant? Did they dare to come over? If they did, he would dare to kill them. Too arrogant. Qi Huangji and the others all rebuked. Ling Han did not speak. At present, he did not have any conflict of interest with Tan Mo, but once they discovered the 9-segment divine bamboo, a fight over it was almost certain. Thus he would not cower either. The divine demon sword served him. It could be said that even if Hu Feng caught up to them now, Ling Han would still dare to face him head-on. Of course, it would only be 1 or 2 blows. He would still have to retreat after 3 blows. But he could even match a saint. So what could a pseudo-demon master and half-demon master amount to? The one who laughed last was the one who laughed best. Boom! Just at this moment, the 28th huge wave came crashing over from afar. The decree that Tan Mo and the others were sitting on immediately exploded with golden light. It was as if a demon master had walked out from within, forcefully cleaving a path through the huge wave. However, the huge wave was indeed not to be trifled with. Multiple seals lit up in the seawater, launching a counterattack. The huge wave crashed over, and Tan Mo and the others all paled. Even the speed at which the decree was advancing decreased sharply. At this moment, Ling Han and the others also met the huge wave head-on. Boom! Phone reading is even more refreshing. Chapter 1565. The Outside World. Tan Feng continuously circled around the historical site. In the outside world, this place only had a radius of 3,000 zhang and a height of several hundred zhang. This powerful demon lord was still pinching his fingers as he circled around. If Ling Han was here, he would definitely be shocked. This was a deduction. Even someone as powerful as the Star Sand Saint was unable to predict the affairs of the world. This seemed to be a secret technique unique to the Forbidden Land, and it was also possible that it was a unique ability of the 8 Stones Forbidden Land. But now Tan Feng would also be able to. Who the hell is he? It's not simple. Tan Feng's eyes grew brighter and brighter. This definitely wasn't left behind by some black demon. Black demons don't have such powerful strength that they can block my predictions. Even heaven demons can't do this. I'll be able to find some clues. This must have fallen from the immortal region. Back then, there was a great upheaval, and who knows how many powerful powers were overthrown. It's not strange for an ancient ruin to appear in the immortal region. This isn't something that a few juniors can settle. Even I can't do it. I'll have to ask the ancestor to personally make a trip. He walked to the side without leaving a trace, took out a stone, and said a few words to it. A wave of energy that even the demon masters could not detect spread out into the depths of the starry sky, instantly covering a distance of billions of miles. Although the Mad Sword Demon Master and the others took a look, they did not discover any abnormalities. Even as strong as they were, they actually did not understand many things. Hong, the huge wave crashed down, and cracks already appeared on the flying boat. It was impossible for it to withstand the next wave. Emily directly threw out the second flying boat, and everyone boarded it. The original flying boat was left to fall into the sea. They were a little closer to Tan Lao and the others. Emily controlled the flying ship and did not chase after them. Tan Mo revealed an expression of arrogance. Due to the fact that there were fragments of regulations within the giant wave, he had no idea how Ling Han and the others had neutralized the impact of the giant wave. However, it was clear that these people were filled with wariness toward him, and they didn't even dare to approach him. They were merely ants from the netherworld. After traveling for a while longer, a green bamboo appeared in front of them, sticking out from the sea just like that. They were separated by at least a few thousand miles, but they could already see it. It was enough to show how thick and tall this green bamboo was. Found it, 9-segment divine bamboo. Tan Mo and the others had evidently arrived as well, because they had slightly adjusted their direction, and were now heading in the direction of the divine bamboo. Emily frowned slightly. Once Tan Mo and the others wanted to fight for the divine bamboo, how was she supposed to stop them? Putting aside the fact that it was just her and Ling Han, even if all the disciples and descendants of the 17 demon masters were here, they might not be able to stop Tan Mo even if they joined forces. The strength of the other party had already reached the level of suppression, and the number of people was unable to make up for such a gap. But I'm not willing to give up. Follow them. It didn't take long for a flying artifact to travel a few thousand miles. After a short while they were already infinitely close to the divine bamboo. It was really too big. Just the part that protruded from the bottom of the sea was already tens of thousands of feet tall and several hundred feet thick. At the top of the divine bamboo, one could clearly see a green fruit. Even from such a distance, one could almost smell a sweet fragrance. The divine bamboo is already dead, Emily said unhurriedly. She had never thought that she would actually have such an emotional side to her. This divine bamboo was indeed dead. Although there were still runes of the Great Path appearing on its body, its vitality had already disappeared. However, the green fruit on its head was brimming with vitality. This was the divine bamboo pouring all of its essence into it. A supreme treasure. The body of the bamboo could be used as a demonic weapon, and the fruit was a supreme medicine. Come down. Tanemo suddenly punched the body of the bamboo, wanting to shake the fruit off with brute force. He should have tried it before. There was a frightening pressure in the sky here, and even he did not dare to act recklessly. Wang, the bamboo was densely packed with runes, but it very quickly returned to normal. It did not even tremble. What a joke. This was saintly material. Could you shake it off? Tanemo couldn't help but frown. This person could not go up, and the fruit could not be shaken off. What should he do? Furthermore, he wanted to take this divine bamboo away. If he refined it into a few feet long, it would become a supreme demonic weapon. Ling Han leaped up and said, "Wait for me." Without waiting for Mo Li and the others to react, he had already soared into the sky. This guy wants to directly fly to the top of the divine bamboo and pluck the fruit. This guy's physique is astonishing. Perhaps he really has a chance, someone said. But Tanemo and his group are just by the side. Even if Ling Han succeeds, they will still snatch it away, right? If we get it, we will quickly run. I don't believe that they can catch up to us. That's right. If we can catch up to them, it means that our speed is even faster. Everyone was talking at once. At this time, Wu Ju did not oppose Ling Han and was giving suggestions from the side. Yet Mo Li's expression was grave. She had exchanged blows with Tanemo and was truly aware of how strong he was. If Ling Han really succeeded, perhaps that decree would not be able to catch up to them. But wouldn't Tanemo attack alone? He did not need a decree at all to be able to sweep aside all eternal river tears. That kind of strength was practically enough to make others despair. But Ling Han had already ascended into the sky, and now they could only take it one step at a time. When he came down, they would act according to the circumstances. Tanemo and the others also noticed Ling Han's movements, and couldn't help but snicker. What an idiot. Even we do not dare to surpass a height of 3,000 meters. And this brat actually fantasizes about directly going up to pluck the divine fruit. He is really out of his mind. Ignore him. Brother Mo, this divine bamboo is so tough, so it is completely impossible for it to shake down the divine fruit. What should we do? Tanemo pondered for a moment, and then said, "The value of this mystery realm may far surpass the estimation of those demon masters outside. I think that Lord Sixth Elder should have already informed the clan. At that time, even if the Grand Elder does not come personally, one of the fifth and fourth elders will definitely come. The whole mystery realm will be ours." "That's right, it's all ours," the other four young men all said proudly, treating it as a matter of course. They looked at Ling Han. Though they were certain that he could definitely not succeed, they did not leave. In any case, a distance of 30,000 meters would only take a short while for eternal river tears. It would not be too late to leave after he had failed. Ling Han broke through the air. As the height increased, he gradually felt the pressure. The air was like blades, incredibly sharp. However, this was completely insufficient to harm him. His speed did not decrease, and he continued to charge madly. Very soon, he had broken through the limit of 3,000 meters, and was still rushing upwards. No way. Seeing this scene, Qi Huangji and the others were all stunned. They knew that Ling Han's physique was astonishing, but they had never had a concrete idea of it. Now that there was a clear comparison, they couldn't help but stick out their tongues. On Tanmo's side, the four young men also exchanged a look, unable to speak. Meanwhile, Tanmo's eyes lit up, and a smile rose up the corners of his lips. If you can pluck it, that's good too. It'll be perfect for him to use as a wedding dress. Chapter 1566. When he reached the height of 80,000 feet, Ling Han also felt strained. It wasn't that his physique couldn't match up to it, but the pressure here was too great, forming a strong resistance. If he wanted to take a step forward, he had to pay a great price. He could still manage to hold on, but when he reached 90,000 feet, he couldn't go any further no matter what. This was the limit. Ling Han was unwilling to give up. The divine fruit was just 10,000 feet away, and he could smell the rich fragrance here, opening up all the pores on his body. If he took it directly, the effect would definitely be amazing. But how could he do it? He stopped and slashed his palm towards the top of the bamboo. The palm force turned into sword chi, astonishingly swift and fierce. But there was also an indescribable mighty force in the air here. The sword chi shot out, but it was constantly obliterated in the process of flying, as if it was affected by Tide of the Ages. But Tide of the Ages was the power of time. And this was another kind of power that directly obliterated it. The sword chi only flew for 300 feet before it completely dissipated. It was too far away. Ling Han shot with the annihilating dragon star arrow, but this only increased the distance to 700 feet. He didn't use the ultimate arrow. So what if he could shoot it 10 times further? It still couldn't reach a distance of 10,000 feet. Was there any other way? Ling Han thought about it, took out the broken wooden sword, and stabbed it towards the bamboo. The tip of the sword stabbed the bamboo, and suddenly, runes lit up on the divine bamboo, blocking the broken wooden sword. One had to know that although the broken wooden sword was broken, if it directly hit, even saints and demon masters would suffer. As expected of saintly material, this result was also within Ling Han's expectations. After all, they were both saintly material, and he just wanted to try. He was just about to put away the sword, but he saw demonic patterns also blossom on the broken wooden sword. This was strange, because he didn't activate it with origin power at all. The broken wooden sword revived itself. He naturally gave up on the idea of putting away the broken wooden sword, and remained still. The demonic marks on the broken wooden sword were fully released, and at the same time, a frightening black aura flowed out. It represented the laws of the netherworld, and was filled with bloodlust. It caused Ling Han's eyes to turn slightly red, and he had an impulse to slaughter the entire world. He hurriedly guarded his divine sense. No matter how strong a tool was, it was still a tool. It was controlled by a person, and it could not be the other way around. With a puff, the broken wooden sword pierced into the bamboo body. Ling Han was shocked at first, and then he was overjoyed. He hurriedly exerted force on the sword hilt, wanting to cut the divine bamboo in half. Then the divine fruit at the top would naturally become his. However, only now did he realize how tough saintly material was. The broken wooden sword seemed to have taken root in the bamboo, and he could not move it at all. If this demon sword didn't unleash its power on its own, it wouldn't be able to do anything to the divine bamboo. Ling Han was stunned. What was going on? Could it be that he had to sacrifice a godly sword? No. He looked at the spot where the broken wooden sword had pierced into the bamboo, and saw that the originally green bamboo had a hint of yellow. He blew out a breath of air, and the burnt part of the bamboo immediately turned into flying ash, floating in the air. This Ling Han's heart trembled. This broken wooden sword seemed to also have a devouring ability, but what it devoured was not metal, but rather the 9-segment divine bamboo, which was also a wood element of the 5 elements. The 9-segment divine bamboo trembled lightly, and bamboo leaves fell down one after another. They were light, but this was saintly material, and each leaf contained a frightening destructive power. How could Ling Han dare to be touched by it? He continued to dodge in the air. The rate at which the broken wooden sword devoured seemed to be becoming faster and faster. Ling Han could very clearly feel that the burnt yellow where the sword had entered was expanding, spreading upwards and downwards, spreading to the whole bamboo. After about a few hours, a green-colored fruit smashed down from the sky. That was the fruit that the 9-segment divine bamboo had borne. Because the branch that was connected to the fruit had also been drained of its essence, it could no longer hold the fruit. Ling Han hurriedly moved. his divine sense wrapped over, and directly drew it into the Black Tower. This time no one could snatch it away. Boom! The whole divine bamboo also collapsed, and all the divine essence was devoured by the broken wooden sword, turning into decay. Meanwhile, there was actually a damaged part of the broken wooden sword that had been repaired, and its color was clearly fresher. Ling Han was astonished and asked Small Tower, "Is this sword also a celestial tool level?" Chi. Small Tower released a cold chuckle, as if it was extremely disdainful. "Will it kill you to speak properly?" Ling Han threatened. "Otherwise, you can forget about getting the Chaos Source Rock." Only then did Small Tower give in, and said, "Survival of the fittest, this is the iron law of heaven and earth. These two are both of the wood element, so they can naturally devour each other. But to say that they want to become celestial tools, that is really wishful thinking. As far as I know, there are only a mere 3 types of wood element materials that can become celestial tools." "Which 3? Ling Han's curiosity was greatly piqued. "You do not need to know now," Small Tower said impatiently. "Hurry up and find the Chaos Source Rock." "Ai, was this his precious tool or lord?" Ling Han shook his head, but did not bicker with Small Tower. It was good to know its temper. He flew down feeling very happy. Not only had he obtained a divine fruit, but he had also allowed the broken wooden sword to obtain a certain upgrade. Though Small Tower looked down on this with disdain, before entering into the celestial realm, this should be an incredibly powerful precious tool. Hand over the divine fruit, and that sword. Tan Mo blocked his path, and said in a calm tone, so natural that it was like a senior ordering his juniors. At this moment, there were flying treasures flying over from afar. They were Zhu Ba, Yin He, and the others. Though they were a long way behind, Ling Han had also spent a very long time to obtain the divine fruit, so it was enough for them to catch up. The flying treasures all stopped. At first, everyone was still confused about the situation, but with Qi Huangji and the others' explanation, they naturally understood. Mo Li, Zhu Ba, and Yin He all stood out, and said, "Whatever gains one can obtain in the mystery realm will depend on one's own ability. If you want to snatch it by force, then you will have to pass through us first." "A bunch of trash. Do you think I do not dare to kill you all?" Tan Mo said coldly. At first, he was disdainful to make a move against these ants, but the saintly medicine was too important. Even his clan only possessed 2, and they had not matured yet, so they could not be used. If he could consume a saintly fruit, the benefits would naturally be astonishing, and definitely not something that these mongrels could imagine. Giving it to these people was completely a waste. "I don't believe you." Zhu Ba, Yin He, and the others all shook their heads. There were 17 demon masters standing guard outside, and you dared to act recklessly? A terrifying smile appeared on Tan Mo's face. "You're all seeking your own deaths." He leaped forward and charged towards Mo Li, Zhu Ba, and the others. A river of stars appeared around him, and it was densely packed with innumerable stars. Heaven was a relative term. With the eyesight of an eternal river tier, it was naturally not a problem. After counting the number of stars, everyone trembled. More than 5 million stars. More refreshing. Chapter 1568. Seeing this scene, everyone was stunned. Actually, after the divine demon sword showed its might, this result was expected. But how rare were elites of the pinnacle level of the eternal river tier that had formed over 2 million stars. In fact, they were even more difficult to find than demon masters. They had just seen one, and he had already died. This was really unacceptable. "No!" The 4 members of the Tan clan cried out in shock. This was the most outstanding prodigy of the Tan clan's next generation, and the clan had high hopes for him. But he was actually killed by an ant in a mystery realm. "You've already caused a great disaster." A member of the Tan clan pointed at Ling Han. "Quickly kill yourself and apologize." Ling Han scratched his head. Although his power had been completely absorbed by the divine demon sword, stamina was different from origin power, and its recovery rate was extremely fast. At the very least, he was able to stand steadily and didn't fall to the ground. Was there something wrong with these people's brains? If he was afraid of the Tan clan, would he have killed Tan Mo? If you guys continue to talk, I'll kill you too. Ling Han glared, killing intent swirling around him. He was not a bloodthirsty person, and would not kill these 4 people just because they had provoked him. But if they did not know what was good for them, there was a limit to his benevolence. The 4 members of the Tan clan hurriedly shut their mouths. Their strength was far inferior to Tan Mo's, so how could they dare to oppose Ling Han? Activate the decree and kill that villain, they conversed in a low voice. But the sea is turbulent, and without the protection of the decree, we may not be able to leave alive. Then don't become enemies with this villain for now. In any case, once we leave, the 6th elder will definitely not spare this person. Moreover, Brother Mo also said just now that the 6th elder must have notified the clan, and there will be even stronger ancestors coming. At that time, humph. They all temporarily gave in, and chose to swallow their anger. This made Zhu Ba and the others very excited. Previously, they had been suppressed by Tan Mo to the point of suffocation, and could only watch as these people were arrogant. But now Tan Mo had been killed, and these 4 people were also terrified. How exhilarating! They also did not understand how Ling Han could completely activate a demonic weapon, but it was fine if they did not understand. At the very least, Ling Han was on their side now, bringing glory to them. It felt great. Mo Li's gaze swept over the 4 members of the Tan clan, and revealed a hint of killing intent. However, she didn't make a move in the end. When cutting weeds, one had to eliminate the roots, but these 4 people still had the protection of a decree. Back then, Tan Mo did not have the chance to escape to the decree, but now, these 4 people probably would not leave even if they died. With the protection of the Demon Master's decree, how could they possibly kill him? However, once the decree was used, it could only be used for a limited amount of time. Everyone had to stay here for 3 years, so they didn't believe that this decree could be used for that long. It was a matter of killing them earlier or later. As long as the 4 of them were silenced, they could say that the 5 of them had died in the sea. Wasn't that normal? You guys barged in without knowing anything. Who can you blame if you die? In fact, Ling Han had also thought of silencing them, but firstly, he was not ruthless enough, and secondly, even if he killed these 4 people, with Tan Feng's personality, how could he believe their one-sided story? If the 5 juniors were all dead, he would definitely be driven mad, and capture a few of them to search their souls at all costs. It was impossible to hide this from him, thus he decided to be magnanimous. He was the one who killed them. If he obtained the Chaos Source Rock, and after Small Tower refined it, he would be able to obtain a power boost. He would be able to slaughter anyone below the Celestial King tier. So what could a mere yellow demon do? Of course, he would not waste it if he could. He wanted to save this opportunity for the 8 Stones Forbidden Land. Small Tower, can you give me a few more power boosts? Just give me a slightly weaker power boost each time, like severing mundane tier, he asked Small Tower. Regardless of whether it was in the immortal realm or the netherworld, a severing mundane tier could crush a Genesis tier. Yes, 3 times, and the consummate level of the Genesis tier, Small Tower quickly replied. The prerequisite is that you have to give me that Chaos Source Rock. 3 times to the consummate level of the Genesis tier? Ling Han bargained. That's not right. Could it be that the power of a Celestial King can only match 3 Genesis tiers? That's not how it's calculated. Do you want it or not? Small Tower was still proud. Ling Han sighed and said, fine, 3 times then. Before going to the Celestial Realm, 3 times of the power of a Genesis tier should be better than 1 time of the power of a Celestial King. At most, he would give this vampire Small Tower a few more Chaos Source Rocks, and obtain more power boosts. Sigh, it was still better in the past. Every time he advanced a cultivation level, he would be able to obtain a free power boost. Everyone continued to advance. Though Ling Han obtained a holy fruit, no one asked to share it. What a joke. Not only did he have a demon tool, he could also fully activate it. Who dared to touch him? Ling Han sat on the flying ship, and took out alchemical pills to consume. He also threw out a large pile of true origin stones, to form a spiritual chi great formation, that quickly replenished the origin power he had expended. On the small ship, everyone looked at him with awe. Just because he could activate a demon tool, it was worth it for them to kneel before him. Qi Huangji shook his head. At first, he had thought that there was only a slight gap between him and Ling Han. But now, the gap between the two of them was already boundlessly large, and he could only look up to him. Though he was unwilling, he accepted this reality. If he could not even admit the gap between them, then he would not be worthy of being called a prodigy. The small ship advanced, and after a few hours, another huge wave came. This time, they received a huge test. Because Ling Han was still recovering, only Emily could act. When they passed through the huge wave, the flying ship that they were on directly collapsed. Come, we have to consider our next move. Emily threw out another flying ship. They had naturally made sufficient preparations for this journey to the mystery realm. Ziyuan, Heng Jun, De Cheng, Qing Yuhan Long Guangming, you all take another flying ship and return. You can search for godly medicines in the outer regions. Yes. The 6 that were named all nodded. Their abilities were slightly weaker. And after this, they could not even use flying ships anymore. They had to fly with their physical bodies, and they would completely be a burden. Thus it was better for them to retreat. After all, the sea was extremely vast, and there were godly medicines everywhere. There was no need to stubbornly press on. The 10 of them split into 2 groups. One group retreated, while the other continued forward. There were only 4 people: Ling Han, Emily, Qi Huangji and Wu Ju. When the next huge wave came crashing over, Ling Han had also mostly recovered. But even if he joined forces with Emily, it was useless. The flying ship was immediately destroyed, and at the same time, it was a huge blow to the 4 of them. Ling Han was unafraid. His physique was enough to withstand it, and Emily also managed to withstand it. Qi Huangji was in a very sorry state, but rank 3 king tiers were extraordinary after all. He gritted his teeth and withstood it. Meanwhile, Wu Ju had a necklace around his neck, which allowed him to barely pass. This was also the reason why Emily left the 4 of them behind. The others could not possibly withstand the bombardment of the huge wave at all. One blow could possibly shatter all the bones in their body. Emily seemed to have brought countless flying ships, and whenever one was destroyed, she would toss another one out. This could reduce their origin power consumption in the process of hurrying. Though it was not much, it was still meat no matter how small it was, so they should save as much as possible. Just like that, 3 months later, a huge mountain that reached the horizon was already close at hand. With the precious treasure, the heaven and earth cauldron in hand, Jiang Tian attracted many beauties, vanquished powerful enemies, and finally ascended to the position of the supreme martial god. Recommending his friend's new book, Battle Emperor Long Wu, seeking support. Chapter 1569. This was Ocean Dragon Mountain. Ling Han raised his head, but even with his eyesight, he could not see the peak of the mountain. It was as if it really was a peak that reached the heavens. But if he looked more closely, this mountain actually looked like an angry dragon that soared into the sky. The 4 of them landed at the foot of the mountain. According to Emily, they could not climb the mountain directly from the sky. There were terrifying restrictions everywhere on the mountain, and anyone who accidentally touched them would die. There were a total of 99 mountain paths that could lead to the peak. But if someone had already taken one of them, then the others would not be able to choose that path again. This was not impossible, because there were also restrictions on the mountain paths, but there were fewer of them. Of course, if they could not break the restrictions, then there was no need to force their way through. After all, it was only 3 years. When the time was up, they would naturally be kicked out of the mystic realm, and there was no need to worry about being trapped here forever. Emily specially reminded the 3 of them not to force themselves. If they could enter, then they should enter. If they could not, then they should give up. There was no need to risk their lives. Only then did she let them each choose a path and start to climb the mountain. However, along the way, there were many fortuitous encounters, because they could pick up treasures from the ground from time to time. There were cultivation techniques, pill recipes, and precious weapons. Although there were relatively few people who could successfully cross the sea, after so many years, the accumulated number was definitely not small. Everyone had once climbed the mountain, So all the low-level treasures had already been taken away. If they wanted to gain something, they had to be able to climb to a higher place. But this was obviously more difficult with each generation. The four of them split up, and each of them could only choose one path. Ling Han chose a path. There was no difference in the difficulty of this mountain path, and it was all the same. He walked up, and before long, a few stones appeared in front of him. They were very abrupt, as if someone had deliberately thrown some stones on the road to block the path. He stopped and carefully observed them. These stones were not ordinary. There were array patterns carved on them, and each stone resonated with each other, forming a small array. Interesting. Ling Han had not seen this array before, so he did not force his way through. Instead, he started to extrapolate and break this array. Although this array is simple, it allowed me to learn some basic things, which I had neglected in the 8th Academy. Previously, I only had high-level formations in my eyes, but I neglected these ordinary but basic things. The path of the divine path is difficult. If I want to master the saint-level formation, I need to polish my foundation to be extremely solid. Ling Han nodded inwardly. He continued forward, and after about 500 feet, another array formation appeared. It was still simple, and in fact he could use brute force to pass through it. However, Ling Han didn't do so. Instead, he only continued forward after completely mastering this array formation. That was what he did next. Because these formations could even be destroyed by violence, it was naturally impossible for them to trap so many people since ancient times. Ling Han did not find a single treasure. It must have been taken away by the predecessors. He was not discouraged. In any case, no one had reached the peak before. In fact, no one could even reach the peak. Therefore, as long as he was fast enough, he would definitely be able to reach a height that no one had ever reached before. Then, all the treasures would be his. 1 day, 2 days, 3 days. Time passed quietly. In a short 10 days, Ling Han had deciphered over 3,000 formations, and they were all very simple. This situation continued for 300 days, and the number of formations that Ling Han had deciphered numbered in the hundreds of thousands. However, after this, the difficulty of the formations that he encountered suddenly increased, and he had to pause slightly before he could decipher them. This still could not stump him, and probably could not stump most people either, because Ling Han still did not find any treasures on the mountain path. Another 200 days passed, and the difficulty of the formations increased again. This time, it was considerably difficult to use brute force to decipher the formations. No matter what, it had to be someone with a freakish physique like Ling Han, or someone who had reached the level of a big shot to be qualified to do so. Ling Han used the Black Tower. More accurately, he used the reincarnation tree in the Black Tower. He deduced the formation patterns under the reincarnation tree, and this greatly reduced the time. His speed was practically unaffected, and the speed at which he climbed the mountain was astonishingly fast. However, the formations became more and more difficult, causing the time that Ling Han had to ponder in the Black Tower also became longer and longer. When there was only 1 year left of the 3-year period, Ling Han unexpectedly discovered a jade tablet on the ground after deciphering a formation. He picked it up and put it into the Black Tower first before studying it. This was not some kind of trap, but rather a secret technique called Flying Dragon Shadow Hands, and its grade was unknown. However, Ling Han could confirm with a glance that this was definitely extraordinary. He nodded internally. Although the later ones came, the fewer their gains. Because of the height and difficulty, the treasures that they obtained were also more and more impressive. It was just like how even if you obtained 1,000 divine fruits, it could not compare to me obtaining a single holy fruit. He smiled cheerfully and continued to advance. The formations became more and more difficult. If it was Ling Han who deciphered them normally, he would need to spend a few months to decipher a single formation. But with the reincarnation tree, this was not a problem. The speed at which he advanced was extremely fast, and his gains were also abundant. Every time he deciphered a formation, he would always discover something on the ground. Most of them were jade boxes that contained alchemical pills or divine fruits, but none of them had reached the saint tier, which made Ling Han feel regretful. He calculated silently. The 3-year period was already very close, and there were only 7 months left. I wonder if I can reach the summit, Ling Han thought. If he did not reach the summit, he would not be able to obtain the Chaos Source Rock, and would not be able to obtain the power boost from the Black Tower. I'll do my best. In these 2 years, Ling Han had not slept at all, but after reaching the height of the Eternal River tier, he naturally did not need to sleep, and it would not affect him much. Decipher, decipher, decipher. When the time limit reached 3 months, Ling Han could finally reach the summit. There was a divine temple there, and there was a stone statue of a true dragon lying on top. He could already see it very clearly from here. Although it was a stone dragon, it gave Ling Han a powerful pressure, as if it could come to life at any time, soar into the skies, and be worshipped by all beings. 3 months, he should be able to make it. He continued to advance, and deciphered the formations. At this time, he discovered how wise it was to not forcefully decipher those low-level formations previously, because the high-level formations that he encountered now all required basic knowledge to decipher. If he had forcefully barged in previously, he could only fumble around in the dark now, and mess around. Ling Han continuously exclaimed in surprise. Basic knowledge was only basic knowledge, but now these high-level formations allowed him to understand how to use basic knowledge to construct complex things. All complex things in the world could be separated into incredibly basic things, and conversely, as long as one grasped all the basic things, they would be able to construct the most high-level things. For example, saint-level formations. I recommend a friend's new book, Battle Emperor Dragon Marshal. Very good. Please support me, and let others see our power. Additionally, I have created a WeChat official account, Gundafy90. Please follow me. Chapter 1570. Ling Han suddenly had an epiphany. The existence of this mountain path was not to test people, but to provide a channel for everyone to learn formations, from simple to complex, from basic to high level. Below, it would let you grasp the basics of formations, and then it would teach you how to make the basics more complex and high level, and its power would increase accordingly. Ling Han broke into a smile. Even if he did not obtain the Chaos Source Rock, this trip was worth it. He already had some ideas about saint-level formations. That won't do. You must find that Chaos Source Rock. Small Tower said in dissatisfaction. Got it, I will definitely try my best. Ling Han sighed. This grandpa. However, as long as there was a sliver of hope, he would also try his best. After all, the Black Tower had recovered, and he was the biggest beneficiary. Furthermore, he could obtain 1 or 3 power boosts. There were only a few thousand meters left, and according to Ling Han's previous experience, there were only a dozen or so formations that needed to be deciphered. However, as the difficulty of the formations skyrocketed, Ling Han spent more and more time. When there were only 3 formations left, there were only 10 days left of the 3-year period. This was obviously not enough. The time he needed to decipher a formation had risen to more than 10 days, and the remaining time was only enough for him to decipher 1 formation at most. Ling Han shook his head. A person's strength was limited, and he really had no other way. Don't give up. Small Tower seemed to have made some kind of decision. I will risk wasting some power to help you. Ling Han's expression darkened involuntarily. This damn Small Tower had been hiding something from him all along. If it was not related to it now, it probably would not have let him know. I can increase the speed effect of the reincarnation tree by 10 times, but it will cause me to sink into silence for the next few days. You cannot enter the Black Tower, nor can you leave, Small Tower said solemnly. Ling Han was shocked. It was not that Small Tower was hiding something from him, but that the price was really a little high. His greatest reliance was the Black Tower. Once the Black Tower could not be used, what would he do if he encountered saints or demon masters? At most, he would only be able to block a few moves. But even Small Tower had awareness, so how could he not? All right. Ling Han nodded. He was also extremely curious as to what kind of existence this Ocean Dragon Mountain was. After memorizing the formation, he entered into the Black Tower and began to make predictions under the reincarnation tree. At this moment, both the Empress and the Heavenly Phoenix Divine Maiden had given up their positions. All of the power of the reincarnation tree was concentrated on him. 2 days later, Ling Han cracked the first formation. 2 days later, he cracked the second formation. 3 days later, he cracked the third formation. It took a total of 7 days. Ling Han heaved a sigh of relief. An indescribably majestic temple appeared in front of him. It was thousands of feet tall and tens of thousands of feet long. Huge pillars propped up the temple, each of which was also tens of thousands of feet tall. In front of such huge pillars, Ling Han seemed incomparably small. "Brat, don't forget about the source of primal chaos," Small Tower said in a strained tone. But before it could even finish speaking, it had already sunk into silence. "Small pagoda! Small pagoda!" Ling Han called out a few times, but there was no response. In fact, he couldn't even sense the existence of the Black Tower anymore. If he had known this would happen, he would have let the Empress and the Heavenly Phoenix Divine Maiden come out. However, he didn't know when Small Tower would wake up. 3 days would pass very quickly, and if he appeared with the two women, how big of a commotion would it cause? What kind of spatial god tool was this? It could actually be brought into the mystery realm. Moreover, he had killed Tan Mo, so Tan Feng would definitely attack him. Having the two women by his side would only increase the danger. So be it. Ling Han took a deep breath, and only then did he start walking. For a long time, he had grown accustomed to the existence of the Black Tower, and he wasn't afraid no matter how great the danger he encountered. This was because he had his greatest trump card. But now, this death exemption token couldn't be used, so he could only rely on himself. Thankfully, this Ocean Dragon Mountain didn't seem to be a killing zone. On the contrary, it allowed him to grasp the basics and various variations of formations. In the future, if he could reach the saint level in formations, this place would definitely play a huge role. The Divine Temple had no doors, so he walked in. The first thing he did was naturally search for the Primal Chaos Source Rock. This was something he had promised Small Tower. He searched everywhere. This divine temple was extremely spacious, and it was also ridiculously large. After walking for a while, he suddenly stopped in his tracks. There were 10 corpses in front of him. These 10 corpses had been 8 men and 2 women when they had been alive, and they were all extremely old. They had all died in battle, and there were sword wounds on their bodies. But even though they had been dead for who knew how many years, Ling Han didn't even have the right to approach them. There were strange phenomena of the universe and stars around these corpses, and they had transformed into numerous air bubbles. It could be seen that there was a world within each air bubble, and it was continuously evolving. Living beings were born and died, and species were born, developed, and destroyed. Were these real worlds, or were they merely illusions? Ling Han's pupils contracted slightly. The strength of these 10 people surpassed any existence he had seen before. Perhaps only one person could rival them. The Heavenly Emperor of Thunder and Fire, the 3 Phoenix King corpses weren't on the same level as them at all. These were elites of the celestial realm. However, they had been too powerful when they had been alive, so powerful that Ling Han couldn't fathom them. Thus, he couldn't determine whether these 10 people were more powerful when they had been alive, or the Heavenly Emperor of Thunder and Fire was more powerful. Could it be that they were victims of the great turmoil? What had happened in the celestial realm all those years ago? Why had so many elites died? It wasn't strange for the Primal Chaos Source Rock to appear here. Perhaps the entire mystery realm had fallen from the celestial realm. Celestial corpses, there should still be some blood essence and bone marrow celestial fluid inside. Unfortunately, they are all humanoid, so I can't do it. Secondly, they are too powerful. Putting aside the fact that I can't use the Black Tower now, even if I could, I would be seeking my own death if I wrapped my divine sense around them. Forget it. I'll go find the Primal Chaos Source Rock first. Ling Han thought for a moment, and decided to fulfill his promise with Small Tower first. Young man! An aged voice rang out, echoing in the divine temple. Instantly, goosebumps rose all over Ling Han's body, and he felt a kind of gloominess. The ancient sites of others were all proper ancient sites, and it was so normal to challenge them and obtain treasures. However, Almost none of the ancient sites that he had entered were proper, and there would always be some kind of change. However, this was also because he was too capable, wasn't it? Who else had been able to enter this divine temple before? Since you hadn't been able to enter here, it was naturally impossible for you to have heard this voice. What the hell was this? Are you alive or dead? Ling Han asked. Though this question was a little strange, it was actually very important. The aged voice rang out again. Don't worry, I've been dead for who knows how many years. It's just that I've branded a wisp of divine sense into the primal chaos source rock before I died. And that's why I've been able to exist until now. Primal chaos source rock. Chapter 1572. Ling Han's gains were also considerable. He had obtained many godly medicines when crossing the sea, and he had even obtained a saint fruit. Moreover, he had obtained many godly pills and secret techniques on his way up the mountain. As long as he obtained the chaos source rock, his trip would be perfect. He walked around the massive divine temple according to Ching Fu's instructions, and he saw many strange and dazzling scenes along the way. This wasn't as simple as a building. Rather, it was formed from numerous small worlds. A single room could be infinitely large, and if he took a single wrong step, it was possible that he would get lost in this small world. Who knew how long it would take for him to walk out? No wonder Ching Fu dared to boast that only celestial kings could break into this place. However, so what if he was a celestial king? He was still ganged up on, and the celestial king of the Chung clan fled in defeat. Meanwhile, the ancestral land was bathed in blood. Although he had escaped from the celestial realm, most of his clansmen had died. After walking for a few hours, Ling Han finally arrived in front of a stone room. He opened the door according to the method Ching Fu had told him, and after stepping in, he had already arrived in a galaxy. At the center of this galaxy, there was a massive rock that was exuding an indescribable light. The Chaos Source Rock. Ling Han could confirm with a single glance that he had also obtained a Chaos Source Rock when he had been in the lower realm. However, Hunyeo had helped him put it into the Black Tower, so he didn't know if he could do it now. The Chaos Source Rock is also a precious treasure in the celestial realm. With the infusion of source power, it can improve the physique of cultivators, Cheng Fu said with a sigh. My Chung clan has relied on this Chaos Source Rock to nurture countless prodigies. Unfortunately, they were only cannon fodder in that great turmoil, if they couldn't become celestial kings. Young man, my mission is complete. Take this Chaos Source Rock, and I will also completely seal the ancestral land. Only the ancestors will be able to find it. Wang. The Chaos Source Rock was already floating over to Ling Han. Ling Han hurriedly put it into his spatial ring. He didn't expect it to work. After he entered the divine realm, he gained the ability to resist the chaotic source rock. Back then, he couldn't bear it because he was too weak and didn't have the fortune to enjoy it. Boom, this world immediately collapsed. Before Ling Han could regain his senses, he saw that he was already on a desolate planet. Not far away, more than 10 demon masters were standing with their hands behind their backs. It had only been 3 years. To the demon lord, it was as fast as the blink of an eye. Thus, there was no need for him to go back and discuss martial art with his comrades. Those 3 years had already passed. Not only Ling Han, but the others were also thrown out. From then on, the Sea Dragon Island would cease to exist, never to appear again. Ling Han couldn't help but sigh in his heart. He seemed to be a jinx, reaching the end of whatever mystic realm he entered. Tan Feng's expression darkened as he looked around. Where's Tanny? In reply to Sixth Elder, Brother E has been killed. The 4 members of the Tan clan hurriedly called out. They finally had a pillar of support. What? Tan Feng couldn't help but be shocked. How was this possible? He hurriedly asked, who killed him? Could it be the power of the black demons in the mystic realm? It's him. The 4 members of the Tan clan all pointed at Ling Han. Shua. Everyone's eyes turned to Ling Han, including the 18 demon masters. However, the 18 demon masters all shook their heads, expressions of disbelief on their faces. How was this possible? Tan E was in the pinnacle level of the Eternal River tier, and his power could even completely suppress big shots like Mo Li. who below the Genesis tier could kill him? Ling Han. Even the Hysteria Demon Master knew that he was very awesome, but he definitely didn't believe that he could kill Tan Yi. This was equivalent to saying that a sheep had defeated a lion. No matter how they thought about it, it was like a dream. It really is him. The 4 members of the Tan clan hurriedly explained when they saw Tan Feng's cold gaze sweep over them. They told them that Ling Han possessed a demonic tool, and that he could completely activate it. This time, even the demon masters revealed looks of astonishment. An Eternal River tier cultivator could actually completely activate a demonic tool? Arabian Nights, they all asked their disciples and descendants, and after learning the exact answer, their expressions became even more astonished. This young man was strange, yet Tan Feng revealed a menacing killing intent, locking onto Ling Han. He actually dared to kill a member of the Tan clan. Moreover, he was the most valued Tan Yi. He was the hope of the Tan clan, and they believed that he would be a prodigy who could shine brilliantly even after he entered the celestial realm in the future. Die! He didn't say anything else, and directly moved to kill Tan Yi. Avenging Tan Yi was one reason. Moreover, Ling Han actually had 2 demonic tools and a saintly fruit on him. This was also the reason why he couldn't wait to attack. Humph! The Hysteria Demon Master was already prepared, and immediately shot out a palm that transformed into a black beam of light that shot toward Tan Feng. Tan Feng had no choice but to turn around to parry. He was confident that he was stronger than the Hysteria Demon Master, but he wasn't so confident that he could take a blow from him head-on. He turned around again, and Ling Han had already taken this opportunity to hide behind the Hysteria Demon Master. "Are you seeking death?" he said in a menacing voice. A mere yellow demon wasn't even worth mentioning in front of the Tan clan. They could easily suppress anyone above the 5 elders. The Hysteria Demon Master flicked his sleeves and said, "You're responsible for your own life and death in the ancient ruins. Moreover, this brat was stronger than you, and he killed Tan Yi. You can only blame Tan Yi for being weaker than you, yet you still dared to shamelessly attack? I despise you." If it wasn't necessary, he truly didn't want to come into conflict with Tan Feng. Otherwise, they wouldn't have given in at the beginning and allowed the 5 members of the Tan clan to enter. However, he felt that he owed Ling Han a favor, and before he could repay this favor, he wouldn't allow Ling Han to die. At least he couldn't die in front of him. Tan Feng chuckled coldly and said, "No one has ever dared to kill a member of the Tan clan, so this can't be allowed to happen. This brat must die. If you protect him, you'll die as well. Everyone around you will die as well." How overbearing. The other 16 demon masters all revealed furious expressions. "You're too arrogant. You've come to our territory, and you're still flaunting your prowess. Do you really think that we, the demon masters, are just decorations? Haha, I'd like to experience fellow Taoist strength." The Overlord Sword Demon Master stepped forward, his eyes flashing with a blazing battle intent. Although he and the Hysteria Demon Master had fought for countless years over who was stronger, their personal relationship was actually quite good. He had purposely made a bet with the Hysteria Demon Master because he wanted to become in-laws with him. At this point, they naturally had to advance and retreat together. Who else? Tan Feng began to mock them. "If you want to die, then step forward and let me remember your names, lest I kill the wrong person in the future." All the demon masters were so angry that their expressions darkened. Which one of them wasn't the ruler of a star field? They were high and mighty, and every word they said was the law. Who would dare to disobey them? They all stood up one after another. They didn't say anything, and just stood in a row. Their intentions couldn't be any clearer. Hee, very good, very good. Tan Feng laughed coldly as he suddenly raised his head and looked towards a corner of the starry sky. Wang, a golden path spread out, and a terrifying pressure instantly enveloped them. Chapter 1573. A golden path spread out, and an elite also appeared. This was an old man who only looked to be in his 50s. He was tall and broad, and had a head full of purple hair that danced in the air even though there was no wind. This person was far too powerful. Under the envelopment of his aura, all of the demon masters couldn't help but tremble. "Earth Demon! the Overlord Sword Demon Master, and the others all exclaimed in shock. An earth demon was equivalent to a great saint. Against small saints and yellow demons, he could suppress them with a single hand. Greetings, Senior. All of the demon masters bowed in greeting. This was a supreme elite. At the very least, no one in the surrounding several dozen galaxies could match him. He was so powerful that one's hair stood on end. Greetings, Third Patriarch. The 4 juniors of the Tan clan all knelt down in respect. Even Tan Feng bowed slightly, even though he was slightly older than this old man. This elite was called Tan Yun, and he was a supreme elite of the Tan clan. The fact that he was referred to as the Third Patriarch was proof enough. 1 clan, 2 demon masters, the Overlord Sword Demon Master, and the others were all stunned. When they had heard the juniors of the Tan clan refer to Tan Feng as the 6th Patriarch, they had thought that this was just an ordinary title. But now the Tan clan still had the 5th Patriarch, 4th Patriarch, 2nd Patriarch, and Great Patriarch. Not a single one of them had died. The 3rd Patriarch was already an earth demon. Just how powerful would the Grand Patriarch and 2nd Patriarch be? Just what kind of force was the Tan clan? This was far too terrifying. After Tan Feng bowed, he immediately turned around and smiled coldly at the Hysteria Demon Master. Didn't you want to protect that brat's life? Ha ha ha, come on, attack. The Hysteria Demon Master's expression was dark. He hid his hands in his sleeves and clenched them tightly. Even his knuckles were cracking. At his level, it was very rare for him to get angry. He was as high and mighty as a god, so how could anyone dare to disobey him? But who would have thought that an earth demon would suddenly appear? In front of such an existence, he was as weak as a small fry who had just started cultivating. There were 4 levels of Demon Master. The gap between them was far too large. In the face of such a gap, even the so-called star geniuses could only sigh in dejection. Ha 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 ha. Tan Feng laughed loudly. He disdained putting on airs in front of his juniors, but this time was different. A dozen or so demon masters had actually dared to obstruct his path, which made him feel quite annoyed. Pooh! What the hell? Merely an ant of the netherworld. Do you all know where he came from? His ancestor came from the lofty immortal realms. Just a single finger of his is 100 times more exalted than all these people added together. Weren't all of you quite ferocious just now? Why aren't you showing off now? Tan Feng didn't show any mercy after gaining the upper hand. He pointed at the 17 demon masters one by one with a disdainful expression. Old 6th. Tan Yun finally spoke. His voice was very low, but it immediately caused Tan Feng to shudder and close his mouth. He paused for a moment before asking, "Where is the arcane realm?" Tan Feng scratched his head. He didn't know either. He had been so focused on killing Ling Han that he had forgotten about the secret realm. Upon seeing the displeased expression on Tan Yun's face, he hurriedly said, "Third Patriarch, this brat killed Little Ro, and he even obtained the holy fruit and demonic weapon in the mystic realm." Oh, Tan Yun glanced at Ling Han. As her gaze swept over him, Ling Han felt as if he had become transparent, as if he couldn't hide any secrets from her. He calmly said, "He's merely at the medium extreme of the Eternal River tier. How could he have killed Little Ro?" "He can completely activate a demonic weapon," Tan Feng replied. Tan Yun couldn't help but be astonished. An Eternal River tier cultivator could actually completely activate a demonic weapon? This was far too inconceivable. One had to realize that even Tan Mo couldn't do this. If one hadn't reached the Genesis tier, they wouldn't be able to grasp the regulations of heaven and earth at this level. "Capture him," he said. He naturally couldn't be bothered to personally deal with an Eternal River tier junior. Tan Feng turned around, his eyes fixed on Ling Han, and he said, "Who else wants to stop me now?" "Father." Zhu Xian anxiously shook the Overlord Sword Demon Master's arm. If she allowed Ling Han to fall into Tan Feng's hands, he would definitely die. The Overlord Sword Demon Master's brows were deeply furrowed, yet he remained silent. Right now there was an earth demon here. What was the point of him making a move? He would only drag himself into the fray. If he had been alone, he could have taken a risk and fled after capturing Little Ro. In any case, the speed of Genesis tiers was about the same. However, he had his reservations, so he didn't dare to take the risk. On the other side, the Hysteria Demon Master also frowned. He owed Ling Han a favor. If he watched as Ling Han fell into trouble, this would become a thorn in his heart that he would never be able to remove. This would directly affect his Dao heart. "Father, save that guy," Wu Ju said in a low voice. Although he hated Ling Han, that was only the jealousy of children. He still had a sense of right and wrong. It was indeed Ling Han who had sent him back to the netherworld. He remembered this. Ha 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 ha. A bunch of ants actually dared to dream of competing with a heaven's dragon. Tan Feng chuckled coldly. He stretched out a large hand and grabbed at Ling Han. He was in an extremely good mood at this moment. Wang! A streak of sword light streaked past, and a demonic claw soared into the sky. The Overlord Sword Demon Master and the Hysteria Demon Master moved at almost the same time, blocking Tan Feng's attack. "Are you rebelling?" Tan Feng was enraged. The three ancestors had come, and they still dared to resist? "Senior." The Hysteria Demon Master clasped his hands in greeting toward Tan Yin, and said, "Ling Han killed Tan Emo in a fair battle. Don't you think it's unfair to have a Demon Master suppress him now?" "Fair?" Tan Feng laughed loudly. "What do you mean by fair? The words of the Tan clan are fair, and the words of the Tan clan are reasonable. Third ancestor, please kill these two people to protect the reputation of the Tan clan." This was far too domineering. Could it be that the Tan clan was the ruler of the netherworld? How could they be so rude and unreasonable? "Senior," Ling Han interrupted and said loudly, "I am from the 8 Stones Forbidden Land, a sect with 10 grand elders. This time, I have specially come to the netherworld to train. If anything were to happen here, the grand elders of my sect would definitely not let the matter rest." He was speaking nonsense, and he was even using the 8 Stones Forbidden Land as a scapegoat. His main purpose was to stall for time. As long as Small Tower woke up, the Black Tower would be usable. At that time, he wouldn't be afraid of heaven demons or earth demons no matter who they were. Moreover, after Small Tower refined the primal chaos source rock, he could even kill the members of the Tan clan. Tan Feng couldn't help but falter upon hearing this, and he turned to look at Tan Yun warily. This was a forbidden land. That was the same as the Tan clan. He wasn't wary of Ling Han, but rather the force behind him. If this force was even more powerful than the Tan clan, they would be in deep trouble. "I've never heard of it," Tan Yun finally said. As he blinked, there were millions and millions of stars flickering in and out of his eyes. His aura was incredibly terrifying. Ling Han smiled faintly and said, "I'm not from the netherworld. Instead, I'm from the immortal realm." "Impossible." Tan Feng immediately shook his head. This person had perfectly fused with the netherworld, so how could he possibly be from the immortal realm? It wasn't like he hadn't tried to enter the immortal realm before. However, the regulations of heaven and earth that he had grasped would be forcibly destroyed, and as time passed, his cultivation level would regress. Thus, although it was said that one could blast open the gates to the celestial realm after reaching the high extreme of the Genesis tier and fusing the regulations of the two realms, it was actually impossible. Was much more refreshing. Chapter 1574. Ling Han only looked at Tan Yun and ignored Tan Feng. With a thought, the light of divinity surged from his body and soared into the sky. Perhaps even a planet away would be able to see it clearly. This was a being from the immortal realm. Tan Feng instantly felt as if he had been slapped in the face. His expression was filled with shock, and he was completely speechless. This was inconceivable. A measly eternal river tier cultivator could actually grasp the regulations of the immortal realm and the netherworld at the same time. This was a completely impossible feat. So what? However, he immediately became forceful again. Could the members of the Tan clan die for nothing? His eyes turned cold, and he was just about to attack again. Wait! Tan Yun suddenly stopped him. Tan Feng was very domineering, but he was extremely obedient in front of Tan Yun. He immediately stopped respectfully. However, he was slightly confused. Could it be that the third ancestor knew about the 8 Stones Forbidden Land? A thought appeared in Tan Yun's mind as he looked at Ling Han. They, the descendants of exiles from the celestial realm, actually knew how to return to the celestial realm. that was to fuse the regulations of the two realms, and they would be able to open a passageway back. However, in reality, no one had been able to do this even after hundreds of millions of years. The regulations of the two realms were like water and fire, and they couldn't be fused at all. No matter which realm one was in, the regulations of the other realm would be worn down. Even coexisting was difficult, let alone fusing them. Thus, returning to the celestial realm had always been a slogan, a dream. Now, however, he seemed to have found a glimmer of hope. He would nurture this guy with all his might, and have him open the gates to the celestial realm. After they passed through, he would kill this guy. In any case, earth demons could blast open the passageway between the two realms, and the Tan clan had a heaven demon. Even if he had fused the regulations of the two realms, earth demons were still earth demons. Entering the celestial realm was the dream of every remnant of the celestial realm. This dream could even suppress everything, including the death of an important member of the Tan clan. Don't use some forbidden land to suppress the Tan clan. He naturally couldn't be beaten up by an eternal river tier junior. Even if a Saint King enters this realm, he'll only have power. He'll be inferior to even yellow demons. Ling Han, on the other hand, laughed loudly. Even when facing an earth demon, he was still able to speak with assurance and composure, his expression not changing at all. This caused the Hysteria Demon Master and the other great figures to secretly nod their heads. This young man was truly courageous. Senior, even I can merge the laws of the two realms, and my patriarch is even more so. It's a piece of cake. Ling Han began to brag. In any case, no one would be able to expose him. If he had the ability, he could go to the immortal realm to prove it. Tan Yun was a sly old fox, and he chuckled as he said, if an ancestor of the 8 Stones Forbidden Land had fused the regulations of the two realms, then wouldn't he have already returned to the celestial realm? This is a flaw. Ling Han bared his teeth. He had only been focused on boasting, but he had not expected to boast to the heavens. His gaze shifted, and he said, my 8 Stones Forbidden Lands might isn't something that lowly forbidden lands like yours can compare to. How about this? I'll receive a move from Senior, and let you witness the strength of my 8 Stones Forbidden Land. His words left everyone speechless. Was there anyone who spoke like that? On one hand, he was addressing him as Senior, but on the other hand, he was calling him despicable. What kind of contempt was this? However, this brat was really arrogant. He actually said that he would receive a move from an earthly demon. Sure, Tan Yun said calmly. It was as if his emotions weren't affected at all. He raised a hand and grabbed at Ling Han. He was only casually making a move, yet just how powerful was the earthly demon? The power of regulations revolved around his hand, and millions upon millions of stars shone brightly. Even the yellow demon was unable to withstand the power of this grab. He had to dodge. If he tried to forcefully resist, he would only be caught. Ling Han channeled the indestructible heaven's scroll, and a golden light shimmered around his body. At the same time, numerous symbols also appeared on the surface of his skin. These symbols were so complex and profound that even the heaven demons couldn't decipher them. Wang, Tan Yun's palm strike was actually blocked. Pooh. Upon seeing this, all of the demon masters, including Tan Feng, spluttered. He's really blocked it. A mere Eternal River Tier Junior has really blocked a strike from the earthly demon. Are you sure you're not acting? Tan Yun retracted his palm, a hint of astonishment on his face. He was indeed very impressed. Ling Han was someone who could fuse the regulations of the two realms at the Eternal River Tier. He was a seedling that could enter the celestial realm. However, that was only Ling Han's future potential, and not his current strength. This is far too frightening. What kind of monster is this? Ling Han wasn't in a good state either. After taking a direct hit from the earthly demon, only he knew that a few of his godly bones had already been broken. Fortunately, the indestructible heaven scroll was powerful, and he was able to recover very quickly. However, this strike had completely depleted his origin power, and he was in an extremely weak state. This couldn't be hidden from the demon masters, and it was precisely because they knew this that they were all astonished. This guy had indeed blocked a strike from the earthly demon with his own strength. He was truly heaven-defying. Tan Yun's eyes instantly became fiery. He believed that Ling Han had definitely cultivated some powerful cultivation technique that allowed him to possess such astonishing power. If the Tan clan could obtain this kind of inheritance, Ling Han was most likely able to fuse the regulations of the two realms, because he had cultivated this kind of cultivation technique. However, this brat had said that there were 10 Grand Elders in the 8 Stones Forbidden Land, and all of them were capable of fusing the regulations of the two realms. This was also possible if 10 powerful saints charged over, and their battle prowess hadn't decreased at all. Would the Tan clan be able to deal with them? Tan Yun pondered in his mind, and he quickly made up his mind. The Tan clan was going to take this great fortune. Young man, come with me and be my guest. If the elders of your clan come, they can take you back. He unleashed another attack. Boom! A demonic palm blotted out the sky, and it was indescribably powerful. How was Ling Han going to block this attack this time? He had already used the ultimate defense of the indestructible Heaven Scroll, and he couldn't enter the Black Tower either. Ling Han was already at the end of his rope. His palm pressed down, and Ling Han's eyes suddenly lit up, piercing through the heavens. Even Tan Yun faltered upon seeing this. Even he didn't dare to come into contact with this kind of light, and he hurriedly withdrew his hand. This was the light of Tao. Previously, Ling Han had comprehended how to fuse the regulations of the two realms, and he had received the approval of heaven and earth. Thus, this light of Tao had descended, and it had then been absorbed into his eyes. At this moment, he had unleashed this light of Tao, and he had once again nullified the strike of a supreme elite. Holy shit! The Hysteria Demon Master and the others were all stunned. Even if they were in Ling Han's shoes, they would definitely have no choice but to flee. However, an Eternal River Tier elite had blocked 2 of Tan Yun's strikes in succession. Putting aside the fact that it had only been 2 strikes, this was a heaven-defying feat. Even they could only kneel before Ling Han. Meanwhile, Tan Feng was completely speechless. This young man was freakishly powerful. Tan Yun's expression didn't change. Instead, a smile appeared on his face, and he said, "Young man, do you have any other techniques?" He stretched out his hand for the 3rd time, and grabbed at Ling Han. How was Ling Han going to block this attack this time? It was as if heaven and earth were responding to Tan Yun's hand. In the netherworld, demon masters represented the will of heaven and earth. How was Ling Han supposed to block this attack? Chapter 1576. The heavens were high above, and even saints and demon masters had to act under its will. If they acted against the heavens, they would be struck by heavenly tribulation, and their souls would scatter. So what if they were in the Genesis tier? They had to endure the immortals' tribulation every 100 million years. And if they couldn't endure the misfortune, it would be useless even if they still had a long lifespan. They were destined to die. Thus, the heavens couldn't be defied, violated, or touched. The Heaven-Crushing Alliance. Just the name itself was offensive, and for Genesis tiers, their strength was completely linked to the heaven and earth, so they shouldn't act against the heavens. Ling Han was surprised. If it were a few petty thieves, then the ignorant were fearless, and it was possible for them to establish some heaven-crushing sect or heaven-crushing sect. But even a heaven demon had joined such an organization. This was very rare. Ouyang Taishan smiled and continued to walk forward. Young man, do you know how to enter the celestial realm? Merge the regulations of the two realms, and blast open the passageway to the celestial realm, Ling Han answered. Ouyang Taishan nodded and said, "This sounds simple, but until now, no one has successfully done it. Because merging the regulations of the two realms is something impossible." Ling Han faltered. Didn't he succeed? Or was it that he hadn't reached the Genesis tier, so the regulations were easy to comprehend, but not after advancing to the next cultivation level? You are an exception, so I have come to see you personally, Ouyang Taishan added. So I am an exception? No. Empress Luan Xing also merged the regulations of the two realms, but the heavenly phoenix divine maiden couldn't, and could only use the regulations of the netherworld to replace the regulations of the immortal realm. No matter how he explained, he couldn't do it. Could it be that the Empress was because of her divine fetus? Ling Han didn't speak. Obviously, Ouyang Taishan didn't just come to take a look at him. So he only had to listen quietly. Young man, I will tell you a secret. Ouyang Taishan suddenly changed the topic. A long time ago, the specific time is already unknown, but the Netherworld and the Immortal Realm were actually one. What? Ling Han's eyes widened abruptly. This was really a shocking piece of news. The Netherworld and Immortal Realm were one. That's right, Small Tower had said that the Celestial Realm was not a place that was on a higher level than the Immortal Realm, but rather a part of the Immortal Realm, just that it was a bit more special. Meanwhile, the Immortal Domain had complete laws, and there was no distinction between creation and destruction. Could it be that the God world had been split into three? One of them was the Immortal Domain, which had been preserved in its original state, but was much smaller. The other had been split into two, becoming the God world and the Netherworld. However, the destruction had been even greater. Not only had the Immortal Domain been split in two, but the natural laws had also been broken. That place is called the Ancient World, Ouyang Taishan said as he continued to reveal the great secret. In the Ancient Realm, the Celestial Realm is an extremely special place. Only those who have reached the Great Saint or Earth Demon Realm can enter. There is an indestructible divine essence there, which can allow a martial art practitioner to continue to raise their cultivation, and thus live as long as the heavens. However, I don't know which day the Celestial Realm underwent a great upheaval, or perhaps the Ancient Realm underwent a world-shaking transformation first, splitting into the Immortal Realm and the Netherworld, which then affected the Celestial Realm. You should also know that back then, a great upheaval occurred in the Immortal Realms. Countless powers suffered a bloodbath, and a small number of people either fled or were expelled from the Immortal Realms, losing their qualifications for eternal life. Now the Ancient Realm has been split into two, and the regulations are opposing each other. This has also caused a split in the Genesis tier, which is divided into demon masters and saints. This has also caused everyone to lose the right to enter into the Celestial Realm. There is only one way to change this. Ouyang Taishan's eyes suddenly lit up. Let the Netherworld and God realms merge, and form the Ancient Realm again. What a lofty ambition, what a lofty goal. Ling Han was astonished. So this was the true meaning of the Heaven-Crushing Alliance. They didn't want to fight against the heaven and earth. Instead, they wanted to break apart the barrier between the heaven and earth, and help the two realms merge again. But is it possible? Ouyang Taishan seemed to have guessed Ling Han's doubts and said, these two worlds are one in the first place. They can naturally fuse together. In reality, the passageway between the two worlds that you arrived at is a kind of instinct of the Ancient Realm. It wants to merge again. As it turned out, this was the true meaning of the passage between the two worlds. It was not that the two worlds were in conflict, but that the two worlds were seeking to merge. Through this kind of method, they were mutually permeating each other. There would be a day when the two worlds would once again merge into one, and the ancient world would be re-established. But this process will take billions of years, or even trillions of years. The old heaven demon continued. At first, we could only wait. Though we could give it a push, the effects would not be too good. But now that you have appeared, things are different. You can become a core that can merge the regulations of the two realms, and infinitely increase the speed of the reconstruction of the two realms. Ouyang Taishan looked at Ling Han, and said with an incredibly solemn expression, "Now, I officially invite you to join the Heaven-Crushing Alliance. As long as you nod, you can become the 17th elder of this alliance. I can promise you that I will do everything in my power to nurture you." Hiss, Goli inhaled sharply. The 17th elder, what kind of glory was that? One had to know what kind of people the current 16 elders of the Heaven-Crushing Alliance were. Heaven demons and saint kings were existences that had reached the pinnacle. Furthermore, the 16 elders were ranked in no particular order. Thus, though Ling Han was the 17th elder, in terms of authority, he wouldn't be slightly inferior to the Great Elder, Second Elder, or Ninth Elder. Even heaven demons and saint kings that had just broken through did not have the right to assume the position of elder. Yet it was given to a minor cultivator in the medium extreme of the Eternal River tier. How could this not be shocking? But who asked Ling Han to be a rare commodity? Merging the regulations of the two realms was unprecedented. Yet Ling Han thought for a moment and asked, "May I ask, Senior, who are in the Heaven-Crushing Alliance?" From the other's tone, this was a super-organization that spanned across two realms. If the 8 Stones Forbidden Land was also among them, then things would be a little strange. Ouyang Taishan spoke of names one after another. There were the honorific names of elites, as well as the names of forbidden lands. Those that were qualified to know of the existence of the celestial realm were basically the descendants of those that had been banished and escaped. Among them, there was one surnamed Hu, and he was the ancestor of the 8 Stones Forbidden Land. As expected, the 8 Stones Forbidden Land was so powerful, so it should have a part in such a grand plan. The 8 underworlds and 8 immortals were just right. There were 8 forbidden lands on each side that had participated in this matter. However, the Tan clan's Dongchang Forbidden Land was not among them. Old Geezer Tan is afraid of trouble, worried that interfering with the merging of the two realms would incur the wrath of heaven, Ouyang Taishan said, appearing very disdainful. In his eyes, there was no more lofty goal than entering the celestial realm. Furthermore, if they did not enter the celestial realm, they would eventually die of old age, so they might as well take a gamble. But not all the forbidden lands had the same idea as him. Merging the two realms was something that was completely impossible for them. Thus, they would rather search for other methods. But until now, these two sides had actually not found a path that they could take. They had not seen anyone break into the celestial realm at all. Ling Han thought for a moment, shook his head and said, "I have some conflict with the 8 Stones Forbidden Land." Ouyang Taishan couldn't help but be startled, and the expression he looked at him was filled with a strange expression. "You are really too good at causing trouble, aren't you?" Chapter 1577. Goli was rendered speechless as well. However, to be able to offend 2 great forbidden lands, and to not let the netherworld and the immortal realm off, this was also a kind of ability. More importantly, Ling Han had offended the 8 Stones Forbidden Land, and was still able to enter the netherworld alive. This was even more impressive. This guy couldn't have come to the netherworld to seek refuge, right? When Goli thought about it again, he couldn't help but feel even more astonished. You managed to comprehend the regulations of the netherworld just by avoiding trouble, and even fused them with the regulations of the immortal realm. It practically makes one jealous. Ouyang Taishan, on the other hand, was deep in thought. The 8 Stones Forbidden Land was one of the top forces in the immortal realm. This was especially so for the ancestor of the 8 Stones Forbidden Land. His strength could definitely be ranked in the top 10 of the immortal realm. Even Ouyang Taishan did not dare to be careless in front of such a great figure. He did not dare to pat his chest and guarantee that the other party would listen to his advice and resolve the conflict between him and Ling Han. "Tell me, what kind of grudge do you have?" he asked. Ling Han did not hide anything. He recounted the grudge between him and the 8 Stones Forbidden Land, causing Ouyang Taishan to involuntarily frown. This was a little thorny. "I will ask an old friend from the immortal realm to persuade him. I believe that old ghost who will consider the overall situation," Ouyang Taishan said. He had such confidence because he believed that the desire of the Hu clan's old ancestor to enter the celestial realm was greater than anything else. If they could enter the immortal domain, then everyone would have a chance of becoming an immortal, their lifespan limitless. In comparison, the death of a few clansmen was a small matter. Those who achieve great things don't bother about trifles. "Young man, this old man will come to find you after a period of time. Additionally, this old man will also personally pay a visit to the Tan clan and make them behave themselves." Ouyang Taishan nodded and spread out a golden pathway. He grabbed Goli and left. Just like that. "What about me?" Ling Han could not help but be speechless. Now that everyone had left, he could not use the Black Tower, and the cloud-piercing shuttle was also inside. So what else could he do? He indeed did not have to worry about dying of thirst or hunger when traversing the galaxy. But the speed was too slow. Even if he ran to see Space Planet, who knew how long it would take? Forget it, he would wait for Small Tower to recover. Ling Han sat down cross-legged. For the past 3 years, he had spent most of his time comprehending the Tao of arrays, and had accumulated a large amount of experience. Now that he could sort it out, it would be of great help to him in mastering Saint Grade arrays in the future. The higher one's cultivation level, the more difficult it would be for them to surpass their cultivation level in battle. This was especially the case for Genesis tier cultivators. The suppression of great saints over medium saints, and medium saints over small saints was practically irreversible. The main reason was that those who could reach this stage were all king tiers, who had cultivated to the pinnacle of a certain realm. Thus, even though there was a difference of 1 tier, 2 tiers, and 3 tiers, unless everyone's realm was exactly the same, it was very difficult for such an advantage to manifest. If he wanted to maintain the ability to battle those at a higher cultivation level than him in the Genesis tier, then he would have to make good use of the indestructible Heaven Scroll, and formations would be the best weapon to fully display the characteristics of his powerful physique. He sat there for 10 days and 10 nights. It wasn't that he wanted to end his meditation, but that Small Tower finally woke up. "Brat, did you obtain the Primal Chaos Origin Rock?" Small Tower asked. Its voice was very weak, and it had clearly not completely recovered yet. "Take it." Ling Han did not tease it. Coming to Small Tower this time had really been very hurtful. "Very good." Small Tower put away the Primal Chaos Origin Rock, and then ignored Ling Han. "Hey, you damn ungrateful Small Tower. You're clearly burning the bridge after crossing it." Ling Han called out, but Small Tower completely ignored him. In any case, the Black Tower had been reactivated, so he was in no hurry to leave. Instead, he entered into the Black Tower, and counted his gains from the Ocean Dragon Mountains with the Empress and the Heavenly Phoenix Maiden. On the other hand, he also wanted to tell the 2 women about the Heaven-Crushing Alliance. The Heavenly Phoenix Divine Maiden still could not merge the regulations of the 2 realms. No matter how much time she spent under the reincarnation tree, it was useless. The Heaven-Crushing Alliance, no. All the Forbidden Lands should know how to return to the celestial realm, but after innumerable years, no one has succeeded, which means that this step is incredibly difficult. Ling Han pondered for a moment, and then said, "The fact that you and I can merge the regulations of the 2 realms should be a special situation." His last words were said to the Empress. At that time, Gu Daoyi had been full of confidence, and was sure that he could definitely return to the celestial realm. Perhaps one of the reasons for his confidence was because he had formed a divine fetus. Otherwise, why would he have needed to waste 9 lifetimes in the immortal realm? Could it be that he could not form a divine fetus for 10 lifetimes in the celestial realm? It was not that he could not, but rather that he could not return to the celestial realm in his previous 9 lifetimes. "Do you want to agree?" the Empress asked. Ling Han nodded and said, "I don't mind. Everyone should have the right to climb to the peak of martial art, and no one can take that away from them." The Empress smiled gently. Actually, she did not care about the lives of the world at all. What did it have to do with her? But since Ling Han said he wanted, she would do her best to help Ling Han. Meanwhile, the Heavenly Phoenix Divine Maiden was very gloomy. Even if she had obtained the inheritance of the 3 Phoenix Kings, there was still a huge gap between her and Ling Han and the Empress. "Feng give me a kiss." Ling Han sensed her disappointment, and couldn't help but say with a smile, "Fuck you." The Heavenly Phoenix Divine Maiden rolled her eyes at him, yet the Empress stretched her head over, and planted a light kiss on Ling Han's lips, as if she was consoling him. The Heavenly Phoenix Divine Maiden thought for a moment, and also moved closer to kiss him. This Empress was so charming, but she was still as gentle as water towards this bad guy. If she was still stubborn and unruly, she would probably be banished to the cold palace. Meanwhile, Ling Han laughed loudly, and held the Empress in one hand, and the Heavenly Phoenix Divine Maiden in the other. He kissed both of their fragrant lips heavily, and then drew out the saintly fruits, and began to cook them. They had no choice but to cook them. The medicinal effects of the saintly medicine were too violent, and eating it directly would only result in death. Even Ling Han was no exception, and if they cooked it in the Black Tower, they could use the power of the Black Tower to suppress it, and would not waste the slightest bit of the medicinal effects. They split the food, but the Heavenly Phoenix Divine Maiden could not eat much at all. She could only drink a little bit of the soup, and then began to refine it under the reincarnation tree. Meanwhile, Ling Han and the Empress had split the entire fruit. Both of them were surging with divine light, and multiple patterns were glowing all over their bodies, incredibly dazzling. They hurriedly refined it. 3 days later, both Ling Han and the Empress's cultivation level had advanced a great deal. However, they were only in the Eternal River tier. If they advanced into the Genesis tier, they would probably need more than 10 saintly medicines to increase their cultivation level by 1 star. The use of saintly medicines is actually not to increase cultivation level, but rather contains fragments of great Tao, which saints can comprehend. Or if they have suffered injuries of great Tao, they can use saintly medicines to recover, the Empress said with a smile. Starting from the Genesis tier, if you want to increase your cultivation level, you can basically only rely on hard cultivation. If it is saintly medicines, that would really be too wasteful. You would need a huge amount of them. A huge amount is a huge amount. I want to enter into the celestial realm as soon as possible, the Empress said with a smile. His parents, his lovers, and his son were all in the celestial realm. He had not seen them for over 100 years, and he missed them greatly. All right, then we will go and rob them in future, the Empress said indifferently. As long as Ling Han liked it. So what if they poked a hole in the sky? Cell phones read more refreshingly. Chapter 1578. Ling Han and his group returned to Sea-Space Planet on the cloud-piercing shuttle, and they hadn't even taken a breather when they saw Wuju come looking for them. He charged at the Heavenly Phoenix Divine Maiden, and the result was naturally that he was grabbed by the neck and thrown out by Ling Han. Despicable guy, you've gone too far, Little Shou said with a wronged expression. Che, you want to hug my wife, and you say that I've gone too far? Ling Han said with a smile. You're too dirty. I just miss big sister too much, Little Shou said angrily. Just give up on that thought. It's impossible. Ling Han shook his head. Wu Ju still wanted to say something, but suddenly discovered Empress Luan Xing. His eyes involuntarily popped out, and his mouth was half open, revealing an incredibly stunned expression. He immediately ran over and said, Big sister, I'm called Wu Ju, what's your name? The Empress was proud, and couldn't even be bothered to look at him. But this completely aroused Little Shou's true nature, and he wanted to kneel down and lick her. Don't even think about that, she's still my wife. Ling Han wrapped his arms around the Empress's slender waist, and the Empress broke her stern expression, and gave him a sweet smile. Ah! Little Shou pounded the ground sorrowfully. In his heart, the Heavenly Phoenix Divine Maiden, who was like a sister and a mother, was this guy's wife. The super beauty that had just made his heart thump and ignited his passion was also this guy's wife. Why were all the good women in this world taken by this bastard? Emily walked over and patted Little Shou's head. Then she said to Ling Han, You didn't use your full strength when you battled with me that day. She was slightly displeased. As a king tier, she hated it when others went easy on her. Ling Han smiled and said, That was my ultimate move. If I used it, it would either be the enemy's death or mine. It's not suitable to be used in a spar. Emily finally felt a little relieved and nodded. When I'm stronger, I'll find you for a spar. Tan Mo's appearance made her realize that she was far from reaching the limits of the Eternal River tier. Before she broke through to the Genesis tier, she still had a vast space for improvement. Okay, Ling Han said casually. Emily carried Little Shou and left. Meanwhile, Ling Han, the Empress, and the Heavenly Phoenix Maiden settled down and enjoyed some delicious food. Life was not just about cultivation. When it was time to enjoy, one should still enjoy. A few days later, Ling Han suddenly felt like he was being watched, but no matter how hard he looked, he couldn't find the source of this feeling, which made him feel a little strange. However, there was a demon master overseeing this place, and he was also a big shot among the yellow demons. There were not many people who were qualified to come here to act violently. Ling Han thought about it and put it aside. He had more important things to deal with now. Create a new pill recipe. The alchemical pills that he currently had were all not to his liking. Although they could increase the accumulation of origin power, they were far, far too slow. Furthermore, there were far too few saintly medicines, and waiting for the reincarnation tree to bear fruit would be even slower. Furthermore, the number of saintly medicines was also limited. In truth, the use of saintly medicines was also to provide comprehension of great Tao, and not to increase the accumulation of origin power. For the vast majority of cultivators, this was instead the easiest part to resolve. On the contrary, if they focused on increasing their origin power, and neglected the comprehension of cultivation level, that would be like a child waving a supreme divine sword. Not only would they not be able to control the divine sword, they would instead wound themselves. This was like not increasing their cultivation level, and their capacity was limited, yet they insisted on stuffing in a vast amount of origin power. That would only make them explode. But Ling Han was different. His comprehension ability was extremely high in the first place, and he also had the reincarnation tree, so he could drink reincarnation tea. What he needed was the accumulation of origin power, because this was too special. Aside from some special divine fruits, such as the red clear fish fruit, there was no other alchemical pill that had this kind of effect. It was too useless. The ancients couldn't be bothered to study it, and even if they did, it would be poison to humans. Perhaps the celestial realm had this kind of pill recipe, but because the ancient realm had fallen apart, this kind of pill recipe had long since been lost. And Ling Han wanted to create this kind of alchemical pill. Previously, he had grasped the pharmacology of all the medicinal ingredients. Thus, theoretically, anyone could create it as long as they had enough time to study it. Furthermore, he was the alchemy emperor, and he also had a nature-defying thing like the reincarnation tree. Ling Han went into seclusion and wanted to create a new kind of pill recipe from scratch. This was a challenge, but for the alchemy emperor who had grasped all the pharmacology, this was not an unsolvable problem. Time passed quietly, and a year had already flown by, and Ling Han was still thinking hard about the new pill recipe in the Black Tower. Occasionally, he would go out and spar with Mo Li or the Empress. He could not just focus on alchemy and neglect martial art. He already had a prototype, but it had not been completely confirmed yet. There were still many details that needed to be studied. However, he only planned to give this alchemical pill to himself and the Empress. Thus, he could deal with it according to the special circumstances of the two of them. And he could also neglect some things, such as the violence of the medicinal effects. Their physiques were all extremely astonishing, and belonged to the type that would be very difficult to eat bad food. Thus, it was fine if the medicinal effects were a little violent, and there was no need to optimize it in this aspect. Every time Ling Han walked outside, he would always have a feeling that he was being watched. The further he was from the chaotic demon palace, the stronger this feeling was. It was as if someone was waiting for a chance to make a move, but because they were not confident, they continued to hold back. Could it be Hu Feng? When this thought flashed through Ling Han's mind, he shook his head. Firstly, he had already entered into the netherworld, and logically speaking, Hu Feng should not be able to predict his whereabouts. Secondly, if Hu Feng had come, he was practically a super pillar of light in the netherworld. Wherever he went, there would be light, so how could there not be any unusual sights? Or perhaps someone from the Tan clan. Ouyang Taishan had gone to act as a lobbyist, warning this forbidden land not to act recklessly. Perhaps they had agreed on the surface, but secretly sent out assassins. As long as they acted cleanly, who could accuse them of being the culprit? Ling Han smirked coldly internally. If anyone dared jump out to make trouble for him, as long as they reached the Genesis tier, he would use the power boost from the Black Tower once, and directly kill them. Fuck, did they really think he was easy to bully? A few days later, a golden path spread out from the galaxy. Ouyang Taishan had arrived. He had a secret conversation with Ling Han for a while, and told him that the majority of the matters had already been settled. He only had to nod his head, and he would be able to join the heaven-crushing alliance. However, because Ling Han's present cultivation level was a little low, the powerful figures in the alliance did not agree to give him the title of 17th Elder. What those old geezers mean is that you should first enter into the Green River Valley to cultivate, and when the day comes that you advance into the Genesis tier, they will promote you to an elder, Ouyang Taishan said. Ling Han was not surprised. He was only in the Eternal River tier, and it would be strange if those true big shots agreed to him becoming an elder. That would be too embarrassing. He asked, Senior, what kind of place is the Green River Valley? Oh, we, a few forbidden lands, have jointly opened up a mystery realm, which is specifically used to nurture the younger generation, with the hope that more Genesis tiers will appear to contribute to the future, Ouyang Taishan said calmly. Even Genesis tiers could be nurtured. Chapter 1580. Ling Han glanced at these 5 people, smiled and said, That's right, I'm Ling Han. What business do you all have? Hee, nothing much. We were just thinking, a guy in the medium extreme of the Eternal River tier. What right does he have to become an elder? A young man said with a smile, but there was obvious disdain in his tone. He wore a suit of black scale armor with barbs, looking very ferocious. This was an Eternal River tier, but the strength of his aura far surpassed that of an ordinary cultivator in the consummate level of the Eternal River tier. It was as if he only needed a light puff of air to kill hundreds or thousands of cultivators in the consummate level of the Eternal River tier. His strength far surpassed Mo Li, Zhu Ba, and the others, and could definitely stand shoulder to shoulder with Tan Mo, the pinnacle level of the Eternal River tier, and possibly formed as many as 2 million stars. Ling Han couldn't help but nod internally. As expected of a prodigy that had walked out of a forbidden land, he was indeed astonishing. Furthermore, Ouyang Taishan had previously said that Mo Li wasn't qualified to come here, and that was indeed very reasonable. Merely this person was enough to crush her who knew how many times. Thankfully he didn't become one. Otherwise he would have become a great joke. Another person laughed loudly. His aura was not the slightest bit weaker than that of the scaled young man from before, and there was a million disdain towards Ling Han on his face. Hurry up and get lost. The third young man did not laugh, but his expression was cold. You are not worthy to be on par with us at all, and are practically dragging down our level. The remaining 2 people crossed their arms, looking like they were enjoying the show. A bunch of smelly bugs. The Empress was furious, and pointed at these 5 people, her expression filled with baleful killing intent. They actually dared to insult her Ling Han. The 5 people glanced at the Empress, and couldn't help but look stunned. Even if they were the most prodigies of the present age, so what? In front of the Empress's charm, they were still like little boys who had just entered the field of love, completely at a loss. There was actually such a beautiful woman in this world. Not only was she beautiful, she also had a lofty bearing, as if whatever she said was right, and people would willingly obey her. This was clearly not something that prodigies should do, but the 5 of them did not want to extricate themselves, and were willing to prostrate themselves at the feet of the Empress just like that. Even if they only kissed her shoes, their lives would be worth it. However, King Tears were after all King Tears. The 5 of them forcibly restrained their restlessness, and did not even dare to look at the Empress, fearing that they would completely succumb to her. How about this? We won't make things difficult for you. As long as you can take 3 of my attacks, we won't chase you away. As long as you crawl under our legs once, we'll allow you to stay here, said the first young man. Ling Han's gaze couldn't help but turn cold. He knew that if he entered a new place, there would definitely be the phenomenon of people bullying newcomers. However, after listening to this young man's words, he was still a little annoyed. All of you deserve to die. The Empress was the first to fly into a rage, and attacked the 5 of them. Boom! Her strength was outstanding in the first place, and added with the fact that she had now fused the regulations of the 2 realms, she had also reached the peak stage of the medium extreme of the Eternal River tier. Her battle prowess was truly extremely powerful, and she could even put up a fight against elites at the peak stage of the consummate level. Unfortunately, Those 5 people had all cultivated to the pinnacle level, and they were not ordinary pinnacle level either. The number of stars they had exceeded 2 million, and they were big shots among big shots. Even if it was 1 against 1, the Empress could not possibly win. What more when it was 1 against 5? Thankfully, those 5 people were protective of the fairer sex, and only dodged and did not attack. Otherwise, it was very possible that the Empress would be suppressed in a single move. Wife, ignore them, Ling Han said with a smile. The Empress stopped, and cast a haughty and disdainful look at the 5 of them. Only then did she slowly return. When she arrived at Ling Han's side, she immediately became like a little bird that was leaning on him, gentle like water. The eyes of the young man in the armor, and the other 4 were all red with jealousy. How were they inferior to Ling Han? But why was it that such an exquisite beauty would not even spare them an extra glance? Ling Han looked at these 5 people and said, "If you are asking for a beating, it is not that I cannot teach you a lesson. However, I do not have the time now. Go and wash yourselves clean. 3 years later, I will definitely give each and every one of you a good spanking." Those 5 people were all furious. "You are really too arrogant, aren't you? Do you want to make a move?" Ling Han scoffed. "Don't think that I am new and do not know the rules. If you guys forcefully spar with me just because your cultivation level is higher, you will be severely punished." Those 5 people's expressions stiffened. They had rushed over so quickly because they wanted to take advantage of Ling Han's ignorance of the rules here and scare him a little. If they scared him badly, that would cause Ling Han to lose all face. And would he still be able to sit in the position of an elder in future? They had not thought that Ling Han was actually so slippery, knowing the rules right after he arrived. Don't block the way and be an eyesore. Could it be that you have cultivated so much that you don't even know how to be a human anymore, and want to be a dog? Ling Han said coldly. Those 5 people exchanged a look, but slowly moved aside to allow Ling Han and the Empress to leave. They watched as the figures of Ling Han and the Empress disappeared into the distance, expressions of fury on their faces. Are we going to let him off just like that? Then we will become a joke. No matter. 2 years later, it will be the ranking tournament that occurs once every 10 years. We will go and beg our respective seniors, and try to arrange us in the same group as that brat. There will definitely be one of us who will be able to encounter him. Haha. At that time we will definitely beat him until he cries for his parents. A mere eternal river tear, and an outsider at that, actually wants to share in the treasures passed down by our ancestors. What wishful thinking. The 5 people all smirked coldly. The Green River Valley was extremely large, and the river stretched on as if there was no end. Even Ling Han and the Empress had to walk for close to 10 days before they finally reached a place where there was no path to take. In this place, the Green River surged into the void, and there was no way to take another step forward. This was a small world, a mystery realm, and not a real world. Let's go back. The 2 of them returned to the stone chamber, and someone very quickly came over, handing over a spatial ring that contained a year's worth of cultivation resources for him. It was really very generous. High-level alchemical pills practically cost nothing, and were enough to make those below the Genesis tier go crazy. Yet Ling Han did not care. He gave all these alchemical pills to the Heavenly Phoenix Divine Maiden, while he himself continued to study alchemy. He was already close to success. As long as he successfully concocted an alchemical pill that could only increase origin power, his and Empress Luanxing's cultivation level would receive an explosive increase. Time passed day by day, and a year later, Small Tower completed the upgrade of the reincarnation tree, causing meditating under the tree for a day to be equivalent to 10 years' time. This was really too important to Ling Han. A mere 3 days later, he had developed a brand new pill recipe. He began to attempt to concoct it, because he knew the medicinal theory like the back of his hand, and because he was in the Black Tower, he succeeded on his first try. However, the alchemical pill was indeed concocted, but the effects were not satisfactory. It's too far from my requirements. What exactly is wrong? Ling Han sank into deep thought, and racked his brains for a way to improve it under the reincarnation tree. Chapter 1581. Ling Han continued to improve the pill recipe. From the appearance of a brand new pill recipe to perfection, it definitely had to go through countless changes. Another half a year later, Ling Han broke into a smile. He had found a breakthrough point and greatly improved the medicinal effects. When a new cauldron of alchemical pills was refined, he and the Empress shared it. Not long after consuming the alchemical pills, both of their bodies burst into flames. That was because the medicinal effects were too violent and manifested in the form of flames. Thankfully, their physiques far surpassed ordinary eternal river tears. There was no need to mention Ling Han, whose toughness was already close to the Genesis tier. And the Empress had also formed a divine fetus, and could even distribute the power of the attack she received among her 9 doppelgangers. Even the medicinal effects were the same, thus they could all withstand it. But this medicinal effect was still incredibly violent, causing them to bleed from all orifices, looking very wretched. But the effects were really obvious. The Empress already had enough comprehension of cultivation level, so now that her origin power had accumulated enough, she immediately broke through. The heavenly tribulation rolled over, and she went to the end of the Green River Valley. This was the place where the people here underwent heavenly tribulation. Meanwhile, Ling Han was slightly weaker, but he popped another pill. Ah! He screamed. Even if his physique was astonishing, and his godly bones were even close to becoming saintly material, his flesh was slightly weaker, after all. Under the impact of the medicinal effects, his blood vessels ruptured, and his heart, liver, and other organs were all heavily injured. Feels good. He inhaled sharply and gritted his teeth. The origin power in his body surged, and soared straight to the peak stage of the medium extreme. He comprehended the great Tao under the reincarnation tree. And only 10 days later, he leaped up, exiting the Black Tower. The heavenly tribulation had arrived as promised. The Empress had long since passed the heavenly tribulation, and was waiting for him in the stone chamber. Under the envelopment of a powerful aura, she was really like a supreme empress, beautiful and peerless, causing one to like her to the bone, yet not dare to profane her at all. Wait for me. Ling Han threw down these words and hurriedly dashed out. The heavenly tribulation waited for no one. His figure was swift, and after rushing out 1,000 miles in a single breath, boom! The first bolt of lightning had already crashed down. This place was still far from the end of the Green River Valley, but there was no longer anyone living in the valleys on either side. Thus, he could safely and boldly undergo the tribulation. He voluntarily shattered his godly bones, and accepted the tempering of the heavenly tribulation. His heavenly tribulation was only a formality. His main purpose was to improve his godly bones. Additionally, he also took out the divine demon sword to be refined by the heavenly tribulation. Although this celestial tool had already advanced to Saint tier, there was no harm in letting it be refined by the heavenly tribulation. Half a day later, the heavens and earth could only retract their might. They could do nothing to Ling Han. Ling Han circulated a drop of indestructible true fluid. He sensed the strength of his godly bones, and a smile appeared on his face. The strength of his godly bones still had not reached the saint level. This was also within his expectations, but compared to before, they were much stronger. This allowed him to imprint more limitless 9 deaths formations on his godly bones. It was just like how an eternal river tier could not advance into the saint tier, yet could form endless heavenly bodies. In terms of power, they would far surpass the consummate level of the eternal river tier, forming a crushing suppression. They could be called a different kind of demon master or saint. He can too. However, his present cultivation level was still far from the pinnacle level of the eternal river tier. But his godly bones were powerful. If he inscribed a few dozen top-grade killing formations, he could kill anyone below the saint level. He returned to the stone chamber, and immediately set about inscribing the limitless 9 deaths formations on his godly bones again. This was the strongest killing formation below the saint level, and Ling Han could not grasp saint-level formations at present, so this was the best choice. Previously, he could inscribe 11 killing formations and now, he could inscribe 27. This was too frightening. With a mere thought from Ling Han, A frightening killing intent flowed on his fingertips, forming a light that was only an inch long, like a sword. This was because his path of martial art was more inclined toward sword Dao, and thus the might of the formations was displayed in this way. If this strike descends, Tan Mo will definitely not be able to block it. Ling Han had exchanged blows with Tan Mo before, though he had only managed to kill the latter by relying on the might of the divine demon sword. He still had a considerable understanding of Tan Mo's abilities. If he and Tan Mo fought again now, he could rely on the 27 killing formations to clash head-on with the latter. Furthermore, it was guaranteed that Tan Mo would die in the end. The destructive power of the killing formations was naturally the strongest. However, if he had to deal with them himself, he would choose not to face them head-on. After all, his cultivation level was still in the high extreme of the Eternal River tier. In front of a pinnacle level, this was a great weakness. Thankfully, his physique was too strong, and it was extremely difficult for pinnacle-level Eternal River tier elites to wound him. The sharpest sword and the strongest shield were held in his hands alone. Who could be a match for him? At least, as long as there are freaks that have not formed more than 3 million stars, I have absolutely no need to be afraid, he murmured. But even a freak with 2,500,000 stars had appeared. So if a freak with more than 3 million stars appeared, it was actually not something unacceptable. In this Green River Valley, is there such a being? Ling Han was slightly curious. This question of his would soon be answered, because he had received a notice. 3 months later, all the disciples would be participating in a grand tournament, and everyone had to attend, and could not refuse for any reason. There are still 3 months. I wonder if I can advance further, Ling Han murmured. He and the Empress both swallowed alchemical pills madly, and in this aspect, the Empress actually had an advantage over him. In terms of ability to endure medicinal effects, Ling Han was definitely stronger, but taking too much of any medicine would cause one to develop a resistance. But the Empress had 9 great doppelgangers, and could take them in turns, so the effects were practically not discounted. 3 months' time was enough for her to advance further, and advance into the middle stage of the high extreme. But for Ling Han, this time would be extended to more than a year. This was not bad either. The Empress was getting closer and closer to the Genesis tier, and pushing her down was imminent. Ling Han couldn't help but rub his hands together. What kind of posture would he use at that time? Just thinking about it gave him the urge to have a nosebleed. He began to study the few celestial techniques in his hands. Yes, not just one but several. Previously, he had obtained 2 celestial techniques from the Hu clan. One was the Great Evolution technique, which was used to temper origin power. When the same power was blasted out, because origin power was more condensed, its battle prowess was naturally stronger. The other was the darkness of the Paramount Night. After mastering it, it could create a dark environment, causing those who were within it to lose their 5 senses. This was a little like when he had gone to see the Heavenly Emperor of Thunder and Fire all those years ago. But it was clear that the Heavenly Emperor of Thunder and Fire should be more powerful. He was at least in the Severing Mundane tier, or perhaps even a level higher. The third was the Flying Dragon Shadow Hands. He could confirm that this secret technique that he had obtained from the Ocean Dragon Mountain was indeed a celestial technique. If others possessed a single celestial technique, they would be able to snicker, but he had a whole 3. Which one to learn first? How vexing, he said in a very pretentious manner. Under the reincarnation tree, Ling Han comprehended the celestial technique. 1 day was equivalent to 10 years, and 3 months was close to 1,000 years of bitter cultivation. With his comprehension ability, how could it be that he couldn't achieve some small accomplishment? Time passed quickly, and 3 months had already passed. Ling Han suddenly opened his eyes, a smile appearing at the corners of his lips. He had been here for 2 years, but still hadn't exchanged blows with the king tiers and prodigies here, so his hands were itching. Chapter 1582. Ling Han's cultivation actually advanced very quickly as well, but he could not compare to the Empress. She had already reached the middle stage of the high extreme, and was advancing towards the late stage. The gap between the two of them would only widen, and not shrink. In terms of ingesting alchemical pills, the 9 doppelgangers that the 9 Deaths Heaven art had formed were really too awesome. The Heavenly Phoenix Divine Maiden had obtained a large amount of cultivation resources, and added with the help of the reincarnation tree. Her advancement was also very astonishing. She had already soared straight to the consummate level of the heavenly body tier. She was now so obsessed with cultivation that she would not even allow Ling Han to have children with her. She would cultivate and cultivate all day, and was even crazier than Ling Han. This was also because she had been stimulated. Who asked Ling Han and the Empress's cultivation speed to be too fast, and the other women were in the celestial realm, and perhaps they had already reached the Genesis tier. How could she dare to slack off? The taste of being the youngest was not a good one. Ling Han did not try to persuade her, either. He and the Empress exited the stone chamber, and arrived at the platform above the valley. Crowds gathered. Today was a big day. Although there were only 8 forbidden lands that formed the Heaven-Crushing Alliance, there were really quite a lot of people. There were about 100 or so, and every one of them was a supreme prodigy in the absolute sense. Furthermore, there was no one below the Eternal River tier. Those that had not reached this level would normally cultivate in their clans. At least, they would have to reach this level to be qualified to enter this place. However, the Eternal River tier, or even the pinnacle level of the Eternal River tier, could not be called the strongest here, because there were actually as many as 4 demon masters, 3 men and 1 woman, who all possessed an intimidating presence. Ling Han nodded. Since a prodigy like Hu Feng could walk out of the 8 stones forbidden land, why couldn't the other forbidden lands? Ling Han discovered to his surprise that 3 of these 4 demon masters did not even look at him. But there was a man who stared at him for a while, his eyes filled with hostility. Strange, he had definitely not seen this person before. Humph humph, Ling Han, you have come to seek humiliation today. A young man leaped out. It was precisely one of the group of 5 that had stopped Ling Han 2 years ago, and he was still wearing that black scale armor. This should be a treasured armor, which was why he always wore it. Ling Han swept an eye over him. It had only been 2 years, and this person had indeed improved a little, but it would not have been very big. At his level, forming 1 or even 10 more heavenly bodies would be insignificant. But if he formed 1 more heavenly body in the low extreme of the Eternal River tier, that would be a great improvement. Are you clean? He grinned. The scaly young man's face darkened. You still haven't forgotten? You're such an immoral fellow. There's no need to lower yourself to his level. In any case, we'll just let him recover later, someone said. Although Ling Han had advanced to the high extreme, they didn't take him seriously at all. What a joke. So what if he was a consummate? How could he fight against a Limiter without reaching the Limiter realm? Ling Han then looked at the demon master. This person's skin was darker, and his appearance was ordinary. He was the kind of person that would not stand out in a crowd. But since he had advanced into the Genesis tier, he naturally had a domineering aura that could intimidate the world, making people admire him. Who is this person? The others were also discussing spiritedly. Unexpectedly, this demon master was not a member of any of the 16 forbidden lands, but rather a seedling that had been accidentally discovered and had only been absorbed into this place a year ago. Gu Feng, this person is called Gu Feng. Never heard of him. Such a young demon master. His aptitude is really nature-defying. He can be on par with Ouyang Heilung Shaoran and Go Hai. In the past, there were 3 big shots, and now they're going to become 4 big shots. Everyone discussed spiritedly. There would always be someone who happened to know the origins of the 4th demon master, but saying it was equivalent to saying nothing. Aside from a name, this person was incredibly mysterious, and the information that could be known was relatively limited. Wang, a golden path spread out, and a demon master also appeared. This was a black demon, or else he would not have been able to suppress a few yellow demon-level disciples. Begin drawing lots, and begin the competition, this black demon said. His name was Lu Gan, and he was one of the people in charge here. This was an old rule, so everyone walked out and began to draw lots, but Gu Feng and the other 3 were an exception. If they also competed with the others, that would be too unfair. Ling Han. Lu Gan opened his mouth, and when he saw Ling Han stop, he continued, "You do not need to participate in the competition, and can just observe from the side." What? The young man in scale armor, and the others from before all looked dumbfounded. They had already asked the elders of their clans to secretly do something, so that they could draw Ling Han as much as possible. But they had never thought that Lu Gan would directly give them a surprise. Ling Han actually did not want to participate in the competition. Why can he not participate in the competition? Some people immediately questioned. Though they were facing a black demon, they were not that afraid. With their natural talent, becoming a demon master in future was a sure thing. And there was even a high chance that they would become earth demons or heaven demons. Lu Gan swept an eye over these people and calmly said, "I said no, so no. Do you have any objections?" Ling Han's mission was to increase his cultivation level. Once he advanced into the Genesis tier, he would be able to become the core of the passageway between the two realms, and not only merge the regulations of the two realms, he would endlessly accelerate the merging of the two realms. Thus, it was not important whether his battle prowess was strong or not. So why should he participate in the competition? He could just observe from the side, and if he could gain some comprehension, that would be even better. We are not convinced. Some people were clearly thorns. Because their natural talent was too high, they were like princes and princesses in their clans from a young age, and were used to being self-centered. But now, there was actually someone above them, and was even more special than them. How could they accept this? Humph, if you have any objections, you can go and tell the grand elders of your clans, because this is their decision. Lu Gan waved his hand, and forcibly suppressed everyone's dissatisfaction. Ling Han was also slightly surprised. He had just wanted to use this opportunity to teach the young man in scale armor and the others a lesson, but they actually did not allow him to make a move. However, since a black demon had spoken, it was not good for him to object. He nodded and stood at the side. Then he would first be a guest. What kind of heights had the younger generation of these forbidden lands reached? How many of them were more ferocious than Tanimo? He sat side by side with the Empress, and he could feel the envious gazes of everyone else. No matter if they were male or female, they were all captivated by the Empress's unparalleled beauty. However, the gazes that were directed at Ling Han were all disdainful. To King Tears, those who cowered from battle were naturally shameful. The battles began, and one battle after another continued. Ling Han couldn't help but nod internally. There were at least 17 people here that had reached Tan Mo's level, and there were a few that were even slightly higher. Perhaps they had really formed more than 3 million stars. The battles continued for about 5 days before finally ending. Aside from the 4 Demon Master level disciples, the top 3 were respectively Zhang Ting, Yi Quan and Lu Dang. That young man in scale armor was called Zheng Yemo, ranked 10th. And was also considerably awesome. His strength was definitely not inferior to Tan Mo's. Ling Han, do you dare to battle with me? I can restrict my own cultivation level, and drop it to the same level as you. Zheng Yemo suddenly jumped out, and pointed directly at Ling Han. Should you accept a challenge in public? If you still did not dare to accept the challenge in a battle at the same cultivation level, would you still have the face to see others in future? Chapter 1584. Ling Han smiled faintly and asked, "Still want to fight?" "Fight." Zheng Yemo gritted his teeth. He had only lost his right arm. Though this would affect his battle prowess, he would no longer have to go easy on Ling Han. After pulling away from him, he could use all his techniques. How could he not win? "Come." Ling Han crooked a finger. "Humph." Zheng Yemo raised his left hand. One divine light enveloped him. His expression was solemn, and he suddenly pressed down towards Ling Han. Heavenly cloud mountain shattering hand. Boom. The large hand descended, entwined by the regulations of the great Tao. It was as if the heavens were enraged, sending down a hand of divine punishment to erase everything in the world. Ling Han nodded internally. The other's power was no weaker than his, and the level of his regulations was higher. Added with some kind of secret technique, This person's battle prowess had been pushed to an extremely high level. He was really very strong. However, could it be that he didn't know powerful techniques? Ling Han flicked his finger, and a flash of sword light surged, instantly turning into countless flashes of sword qi that shot towards that large hand with incredible speed. Lightning sword technique. Now that he had merged the regulations of the two realms, the might of the lightning sword technique had risen to a whole new level, because this was no longer just the regulations of one realm, but the regulations of two realms. Destruction and creation formed a cycle, as if it was the creation of the world. He couldn't help but come to a realization. Actually, the present demon masters and saints were not Genesis tiers in the true sense of the word, because the creation of the world contained both the source regulations of creation and destruction. Shwa, 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 sword chi swept through the 9 heavens. Now the lightning sword technique was incredible. It was based on the fast technique, fused with the power of heavenly tribulation, and added with the tide of the ages. Furthermore, it was created by Ling Han himself. When used in his hands, its might could naturally be maximized. The large hand that Zheng Yemo had pressed down was instantly shattered. When it slammed down, it had long lost its might. In fact, it did not even lift a corner of Ling Han's clothes. So powerful. All the king tiers raised their brows slightly. No matter how much they despised Ling Han, faced with this scene, they had no choice but to admit Ling Han's strength. Although it was said to be a battle between equals, in reality, Zheng Yemo had a huge advantage. He had the advantage in terms of rules. Even if he had lost an arm, he should still be able to suppress his opponent. However, they were actually on par with each other. This was too shocking. A solemn expression finally appeared on Zheng Mo's face. Previously, even though his arm had been broken, he was still extremely confident, thinking that Ling Han's physique was just a little stronger. But now he no longer looked down on him. In a battle of the same level, this was a formidable opponent who could even defeat him. He was unwilling to accept this. As a peak-level king tier, and a peerless prodigy, he would not allow himself to lose to anyone at the same cultivation level. His eyes lit up, and strands of essence energy surged from his body, turning into clouds and mist that coiled around him. His aura instantly skyrocketed. It was clearly just 10,000 stars shining, but his strength seemed to have suddenly risen to a whole new level. The Zheng clan's intrinsic immortal art, Mist Transformation Art. Not only can it greatly increase one's battle prowess, but it can also transform one's body into mist, making it invincible. I didn't think that he would have forced out his trump card so quickly. There's no helping it. From the start of the battle, Zheng Yemo has never been able to gain any advantage. He can't keep his face. If it were anyone else, they wouldn't be able to keep their face. Zheng Yemo roared, and ferociously charged towards Ling Han. His hands trembled, and 2 rays of light shot out, turning into 2 divine spears that pierced towards Ling Han. There were multiple divine patterns entwined on the spears, and the light of the great Tao flickered on them. This attack was clearly stronger than the one from before. Ling Han nodded in his mind, but he was not afraid in the slightest. If it was a competition of immortal arts, then it would depend on who had more immortal arts. Boundless darkness surged out from his body, instantly enveloping everything. Darkness of the Paramount Night was a celestial art that he had cultivated in these 3 months, or roughly 1,000 years. Under the envelopment of darkness, everything disappeared. He could not see it, touch it, or hear it. It was as if the whole world no longer existed, or perhaps he himself no longer existed. Why can't I see through such darkness? Someone exclaimed. That was an elite of the pinnacle level of the Eternal River tier. Though he had only formed over 1 million stars, and was the weakest among all the king tiers, he was much stronger than Ling Han. Yet he actually could not see through the darkness. What was going on? Everyone came and went, and then fixed their eyes on Zhang Ting, Yi Quan and Lu Dang. These were the only 3 freaks among them that had formed more than 3 million stars. However, these 3 all shook their heads with serious expressions. Hiss, even they could not see through it. Everyone moved their eyes, and looked towards Ouyang He, Lung Xiaoran and Go Hai, the 3 demon master level prodigies. As for Gu Feng, No one was familiar with him, so it was naturally not appropriate to ask him. Ouyang he was the most amiable and approachable, and said, "This should be a celestial technique that can block out the 5 senses and 6 senses. If one's cultivation level is equal to his, they would be affected, no matter how much. Only those that have surpassed him by a major tier would be completely unaffected." The implication was that demon masters would not be affected by Ling Han. But as long as Ling Han advanced into the Genesis tier, then even heaven demons would be affected, though the effect would not be very strong. This ant actually knew celestial techniques as well? Could it be that he was not some country bumpkin, and had also come from some forbidden land? In the darkness, Zheng Emo did not move rashly. He discovered that his eyesight, hearing, and divine sense were all limited to an extremely small range. He was in the pinnacle level of the Eternal River tier. After all, though darkness of the paramount night could affect him, it was impossible to completely block out his 5 senses. But he did not even know where Ling Han was, so how could he defeat Ling Han? Ling Han smiled and stretched out his right hand, grabbing at Zheng Emo. Flying Dragon Shadow Hands, another celestial technique. Boom! His right hand turned into a golden dragon's claw, incredibly fast. Otherwise, how could there be such a thing as afterimages? It was so fast that even cultivators of the same cultivation level could only catch a glimpse of an afterimage. Zheng Mo's expression changed. In the darkness of the paramount night, his reaction would be a good few beats slower in the first place. But now there was actually such a fast attack coming at him, which naturally put him in an incredibly sorry state. "There's more," Ling Han said smilingly. His right hand was still channeling the Flying Dragon Shadow Hands, while his left hand used the Lightning Sword technique, which similarly specialized in speed. It should be known that the Lightning Sword technique was also fused with the Tide of the Ages, and these were 4 celestial techniques. In the current netherworld, who else could use 4 celestial techniques at the same time? Even if they could learn 4 celestial techniques, would they have the ability to use them at the same time? Only Ling Han. Of course, the Empress would definitely be even more awesome in future, because she had 9 doppelgangers and theoretically, she could use 10 celestial techniques at the same time. Just the thought of it was shocking. Zheng Emo was exhausted from dealing with the attacks. He was continuously hit, and one after another, powerful chi streaked past, leaving behind one wound after another on his body. If it were not for the fact that he still had that black scale armor on his body, which was indestructible, it would not only be his limbs and face that were injured. Ah! He released a furious roar, and suddenly puffed out a breath of air, actually blowing away all the darkness. The galaxy shone brilliantly, and more than 2 million stars shone at the same time. He had finally gone back on his word, and channeled all the power of the stars. Cell phone reading was even more refreshing. Chapter 1585. Everyone was speechless. Previously, they could not see through the darkness, but now that the darkness had dispersed, they could see that Zheng Mo's body was covered in wounds. They could imagine how terrible his condition had been at the time. If it were him, would he have been forced to use his full strength? Probably, it was a warrior's instinct. Zheng Mo's face was livid. After a slight hesitation, he brazenly attacked, grabbing at Ling Han. Since he was forced to use his full strength, he might as well go all out and take down Ling Han. Humph! Ling Han's gaze grew cold. If Zheng Emo had kept his promise and fought him at the same cultivation level, then even if he lost, Ling Han would still have some respect for him. But Zheng Emo wanted to use his higher cultivation level to bully him? Then you can eat your own medicine. Wang! The 27 killing formations in his body activated at the same time, and Ling Han's entire body instantly exuded a terrifying aura. He raised his right hand. There was a ray of light that was only an inch long on his fingertip, but anyone who looked at it would feel their heart palpitate and feel uneasy. Zheng Emo had already arrived, but he forcibly halted his charge, looking as if he had seen a ghost. He stared at the light in Ling Han's hand, and his expression changed. What is that? Super invincible, slashing the heavens and destroying the earth, slaughtering the light. Ling Han said solemnly. Zheng Emo wasn't an idiot, and immediately realized that Ling Han was toying with him. He couldn't help but snort coldly and say, "You're just trying to be eloquent, but before absolute strength, you can only be crushed." Ling Han couldn't help but laugh. "Then why aren't you making a move?" Although Zheng Mo's words were filled with disdain, he did not dare to be careless in the slightest. Although it was just a ray of light, he seemed to have sensed a primordial beast within Ling Han's body. If it were to charge out, it would be able to destroy everything. His face was solemn. At this moment, he had an incomparable advantage in terms of strength, so he had to make good use of it. He threw a punch at Ling Han through the air, and the terrifying power turned into countless gusts of wind. He didn't use any cultivation technique, and just relied on the crushing power. This was a very clever way of fighting. A single move could break through 10,000 techniques. Ling Han charged out, and when the force arrived, his entire body radiated with formation light, easily shattering the force that was assaulting him. He was completely unobstructed as he continued to charge towards Zheng Emo, as if no technique could touch him. This Zheng Emo was so frightened that his hair stood on end. He could clearly sense the strength of the power in Ling Han's body. However, he had already spoken so confidently, and had already unleashed his full battle prowess. How could he still have the nerve to dodge? He gritted his teeth, and struck out with his left hand to meet Ling Han's attack. Hong, fist force surged out. He was still cautious, not wanting to fight Ling Han at close range. Ling Han charged straight through. The killing formation displayed its might, and Zheng Emo could not stop it at all. He closed in on Zheng Emo. Bang bang bang. Zheng Emo was helpless, and could only exchange blows with Ling Han, throwing out 3 consecutive punches, before he managed to force Ling Han back. He raised his hand, and saw that his left hand was already a bloody mess. The killing formation was too frightening. Even if he wrapped his fist with origin power, it was useless, and he was still riddled with wounds. Everyone was also stunned. Now Zheng Mo's right hand was broken, and though his left hand was not, it was not much better. It could be said that he had been utterly defeated. Ling Han had clearly not used any kind of precious tool. The strength of this outsider was too astonishing. Even a pinnacle-level king tier that had formed 2 million stars would pale in comparison. Probably only a king tier that had formed over 3 million stars would be qualified to match him. In other words, Ling Han had already become an absolute big shot in the Eternal River tier, able to stand alongside Zhang Ting, Yi Quan, and Lu Dang. Only Genesis tiers could defeat them. But the problem was Ling Han was presently only in the high extreme. If he advanced into the pinnacle level of the Eternal River tier, how strong would he be? Would he be able to match a demon master? Ling Han was unforgiving when in power. He had not provoked anyone, so why was he always targeted? He had no temper. Pung 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 pung. His fists were like rain, and as the killing formation circulated, he was like an Azura demon king from hell, his murderous aura soaring into the skies. Zheng Emo was unwilling to admit defeat. If he publicly admitted that he was no match for an elite in the high extreme of the Eternal River tier, would he still have the face to see others? The result was that the wounds on his body became more and more numerous, and more serious. In the end, he had no choice but to activate that scaled armor, forming a shield around his body, and only then did he block Ling Han's attacks. This was a demonic tool, one of the precious treasures of the Zheng clan. Because he was too outstanding, it was specially bestowed upon him. It could only be used for defense, and was given to him to protect his life. He was only a step away from the Genesis tier, so he could more or less completely activate this scaled armor. At least, power below the level of a demon master could not possibly break through it. The battle between the two of them finally reached a stalemate, because Ling Han's defense was practically invincible in the Eternal River tier. Neither of them could wound the other. But everyone knew that Zheng Emo had lost, and lost very miserably at that. He had used his full battle prowess, and even used his demonic tool, but he could actually only fight to a stalemate. Stop! Lu Gan did not continue. Wasn't this acting shamelessly? He moved and separated Ling Han and Zheng Emo with a single palm strike. It was as if he had drawn out 2 different worlds. This was the strength of a black demon, All of you work hard. Those who are ranked at the bottom of the rankings have to take note. If you are ranked at the bottom 3 times in a row, you all have to leave this place." Lu Gan's eyes swept over them, causing the few of them to turn pale. If they were expelled from the Green River Valley, that would be a great humiliation. Everyone dispersed. The competition here was too intense, and no one dared to relax. Here were all top-notch king tiers. If anyone relaxed even slightly, then they would be waiting to be surpassed by others. Ling Han could be considered to have completely revealed his brilliance in this battle, making everyone remember him. However, the most outstanding newcomer this time was still Gu Feng. Though he had not made a move at all, his cultivation level was there for all to see. This was a true big shot of the younger generation, and in future, he had the chance to become in existence on the level of a heaven demon. Of course, Empress Wan Xing had also won everyone's attention. The men were filled with admiration, while the women were madly jealous. Ling Han and the Empress returned to the stone chamber. In this battle, he had still realized that he was not strong enough to sweep aside the entire Eternal River tier. This was something that could not be helped. The people here were all top-notch king tiers, and it was not easy to defeat them at the same cultivation level. What more when there was a gap of a minor level? If it was not for the fact that Ling Han had cultivated the indestructible Heaven Scroll, and his godly bones were incredibly tough, allowing him to inscribe so many killing formations, he could only abide by the iron law of martial art and lower his head in front of these king tiers. They continued to cultivate. The Empress's cultivation level was practically growing explosively. She had 10 bodies and could ingest alchemical pills at the same time and comprehend under the reincarnation tree. The terror of the 9 Deaths Heaven art was definitely evident. Ling Han also taught the Empress celestial techniques, such as the Tide of the Ages, the Great Evolution Technique, and Darkness of the Paramount Night. He was sure that when she also advanced into the pinnacle level of the Eternal River tier, her battle prowess would definitely be able to crush the big shots. With the Celestial King tier cultivation technique as a foundation, how could this not be awesome? Time passed very quickly, and in the blink of an eye, another year had passed. The Empress had already reached the peak stage of the high extreme, and was on the verge of breaking through to the consummate level. Meanwhile, Ling Han had just barely managed to advance a step and reached the middle stage of the high extreme. Right at this moment, a major event happened in the Heaven-Crushing Alliance. A new forbidden land had joined the fray, Eastern Chang Forbidden Land Tan Clan. Chapter 1586. The Tan Clan actually joined the Heaven-Crushing Alliance. Wasn't it said that the ancestor of the Tan Clan was cowardly, worried that forcibly interfering in the evolution of the heaven and earth would incur the wrath of heaven and earth, and a heavenly tribulation would descend to directly erase him? Why did he suddenly want to join the Heaven-Crushing Alliance now? When Ling Han learned of this news, a cold smirk involuntarily appeared at the corners of his lips. The Tan Clan had come for him. They knew that he possessed a Celestial King technique, so how could they be willing to give it up? However, he had already gone to the Green River Valley, so how could the Tan Clan still dare to attack the Green River Valley by force? Thus, they simply joined the Heaven-Crushing Alliance, and naturally could send their people in. As long as they could come in, there would be a chance to make a move. Otherwise, he couldn't always hide in the Green River Valley, right? Then, once he went out, they would be able to target him and wait for a chance to make a move. You're really persistent. I didn't go to find you, but you came on your own. Ling Han smirked coldly. He had 1 to 3 chances of power boosts from the Black Tower, and did not mind using them on the Tan Clan. The Tan Clan joining the Heaven-Crushing Alliance did not cause too much of a commotion. They arranged for a black demon to come here to act as a teacher, and also sent over 3 clansmen. But none of them were as outstanding as Tan Mo, and were even inferior to Mo Li and Zhu Ba. In the Green River Valley, the young king tiers were discussing spiritedly why they were bringing in a new forbidden land. This is to compete with the forbidden lands of the immortal realm, someone said, seeming to know the truth. Someone said, as if he knew the truth. Originally, The 8 deities and 8 underworlds were just balanced, no side having absolute authority. However, the old ancestors here clearly wanted to suppress the other side, so they absorbed a new restricted land. Furthermore, there were originally 8 forbidden lands in our netherworld, and it would be difficult to deal with major matters. What if it was 4 to 4? Who would we listen to? Now it's 5 to 4, and one side will definitely have the upper hand. Don't just add another forbidden land. The power struggle involved in this is very deep. There were originally 2 voices in the alliance. One side requested to take in outstanding seedlings from the outside world, while the other objected, believing that the fertile water should not flow to outsiders. Furthermore, even if outsiders were to be married into the clan, it would affect the purity of the bloodline. Now these 2 voices might clash. The ones who can make decisions are the ancestors. Let's just wait quietly. After this incident, Ouyang Taishan even made a special trip to find Ling Han, telling him to keep a low profile and focus on cultivation. It would be best if he did not leave the Green River Valley to avoid any trouble. It was obvious that he had also figured out the Tan clan's intentions. However, he did not have the final say in the heaven-crushing alliance, so he could not expel the Tan clan. Ling Han fell into deep thought. Out of gratitude for Ouyang Taishan's help, Xiaochun did not mind helping him fulfill his long-cherished wish in the future. Using his body as the core to accelerate the fusion of the 2 realms was a great merit, and it would also be very beneficial to Xiaochun. However, if someone from the heaven-crushing alliance wanted to target him, he wouldn't be happy. You're trying to kill me, and I'm still doing things for you like an idiot. I have to advance into the Genesis tier as soon as possible. At that time, even if I can't rival a heaven demon saint king, the world is already big enough for me to do as I please, and I won't have to rely on the Black Tower every time. Ling Han made up his mind, and no longer paid any attention to the storms outside, cultivating diligently. However, the tree longed for peace, but the wind would not stop. He sat cross-legged in the stone chamber. Today would be the day when the next year's cultivation resources would be distributed. Though he had absolutely no use for it, it was a precious treasure for the heavenly phoenix divine maiden. She had already taken one step into the eternal river tier. However, no one came no matter how long he waited. A day passed, and there was still no one delivering anything. Ling Han did not take it to heart. In any case, one more day wouldn't make much of a difference, but on the 2nd and 3rd day, he still did not see anyone delivering anything. He naturally felt that something was off, and ran out to ask. Instantly he was furious. His cultivation resources were blocked by that black demon from the Tan clan. Such a blatant action, and the other powerful figures actually did not care? Ling Han couldn't help but recall the rumors he had heard previously. There were 2 voices in the heaven-crushing alliance. One was open, and the other was closed. Now opening was the mainstream, and they had brought in talented people. However, the Tan clan had publicly blocked his cultivation resources. And even now, not a single powerful figure stood out to object. The meaning revealed in this was thought-provoking. The closed faction was about to gain the upper hand. Or in other words, the 2 sides were currently wrestling over this matter. Once the dust settled, there might be a sudden change in the heaven-crushing alliance. Ling Han was slightly confused. He was clearly the only candidate to merge the regulations of the 2 realms. Even if it was the closed faction, they should first comply with him. After all, entering the celestial realm was the most important prerequisite. That's right, some people want to obtain cultivation techniques from me. They think that my ability to merge the regulations of the 2 realms is not due to my talent, but because I have cultivated a powerful celestial technique. Then, as long as they snatch away my technique, they will naturally be able to merge the regulations of the 2 realms. Ho, at present, there is still no unified voice among them, so I can sit here peacefully. So, it is only the despicable Tan clan that is doing evil. But if there is only one voice left, I might be in trouble. A wise man does not stand on a collapsing wall. I cannot place my own safety on the decisions of others. This is not a place to stay for long. Ling Han did not seek out that black demon from the Tan clan. since he had embezzled his cultivation resources. Arguing with him would only be seeking his own humiliation. In any case, he did not need them at all, and the heavenly phoenix divine maiden did not need them for the time being, so there was no rush. However, the Tan clan made a further provocative move. They actually splashed dog blood on the door of Ling Han's cave abode, and even wrote a great deal of insulting words, looking down on him to the point of utter contempt. Thankfully, Little Black did not come. Otherwise, your buttocks would have been bitten into 3 pieces, Ling Han mumbled to himself. He still didn't respond, because he wanted to know what kind of attitude the Heaven-Crushing Alliance had. If someone stood out and cried out for him, then he would still be willing to continue staying here. In future, when the 2 realms were merged, this would also be a great merit. He was waiting for the Heaven-Crushing Alliance to express their stance. This would determine his next move. To Ling Han's disappointment, the juniors of the Tan clan continued to openly provoke him, but there was still no powerful figure that stood out and shouted for them to stop. Ling Han, do you dare fight? I will only use a single finger. A mere lowly commoner, an ant, actually dares to shamelessly enter the Heaven-Crushing Alliance, too. The 3 members of the Tan clan would curse at Ling Han in front of his cave abode almost every day. This naturally fell into the eyes of the other young king tiers, but they all chose to sit back and watch. No one was an idiot. The powerful figures still did not appear. This was a kind of attitude. On this day, the 3 members of the Tan clan were still cursing outside, their words extremely offensive. It was unknown where they king tiers had learned these unbearable words from. Shwa! A figure flashed past, and there were crisp sounds of slapping. The 3 members of the Tan clan were all sent flying, one side of their faces swollen up. Ling Han stood with his hands behind his back. He was going to start a massacre. Reading on a cell phone was more refreshing. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.